In spirit form, Gruhorn became aware that I had been reincarnated as a sword. Over the endless centuries, I met many owners, and I turned them into heroes remembered in history. Then I met the comrade of my life, a boy born in an unnamed village, Leon Burke. We traveled the world together and accomplished feats unmatched by anyone. On a freezing day, lightning kept striking. In an instant, the explosion produced a tremendous shockwave. He then had to struggle to hold Gruhorn tightly. He slightly knelt, still striving to withstand the severity. But looming before him was a fierce, evil dragon. Not giving its opponent a moment's rest, it began to roar. The situation forced him to stand up once more. Just then, the evil dragon unleashed a massive magical blast. He did not hesitate and released his mana. With an explosive force, the spell was dispelled by him. Then he smiled, "Let us go, my friend." No sooner had he spoken than he grabbed the sword and charged straight at the target. The evil dragon only had time to witness his determined figure. In the next moment, he leapt up directly. The sword swing aimed straight for the dragon's head. And then finally, a precise slash was executed when we defeated the white dragon of the mountain range by the cost. My comrade became the ruler of a kingdom, and I, along with the legend of the dragon-slaying man. At that time he entrusted, "Gruhorn, please take care of my descendants." And this was remembered and passed down to his heirs. Opening his eyes again, Gruhorn noticed the commotion. Just waking up, he felt very annoyed. Why is it so noisy? But a minute later, Gruhorn had to exclaim, "How distracting. What insolent fool dares to shake this body?" Meanwhile, Adrian was shouting, "From now on the master of this sword is me." Others hurriedly intervened, "Your Highness." The soldiers earnestly advised, "Only His Majesty may touch that item. Please return it to its place." Upon hearing this, Gruhorn was surprised. What a prince! He immediately looked back at Adrian, that pig. Yet the boy still raged, "Shut up. In this country there's nothing I may not touch." This made Gruhorn incredulous. This can't be. Then he quickly activated judgment. I must verify with my power. When the info panel popped up, Gruhorn was truly speechless. Seeing the name Leon Burke confirmed he was the comrade's descendant, however. He himself murmured in doubt, a descendant of the holy sword with such potential. Adrian was sulking and said, "Once I obtain this, both His Majesty and the nobles." His tone turned into hatred. "They will no longer be able to ignore me." He felt even more contemptuous. Truly a ridiculous man, daring to spout such careless words. But the boy didn't know what to do and shouted, "O great dragon slayer, lend me your power." Gruhorn replied at once, "Are you insane? Why would I lend my power to someone like you?" Nevertheless, Adrian still raged arrogantly, "Gruhorn." He flailed wildly, terrifying everyone. "Gruhorn, your Highness, please be calm. One is not permitted to draw a sword within the palace." But he answered in anger, "Shut up. How dare you order me around? Do you want to die?" As he ran, he threatened, "Once I have Gruhorn's power in my hands, you worthless lot will." At that moment, Adrian's body suddenly lurched. By accident, the blade turned toward him, and in the blink of an eye, the point drew ever closer. The next instant, the soldiers' faces went pale. Adelia hurriedly covered her mouth to stifle a scream. A moment later, a panicked cry rang out, "Your Highness." In that situation, Gruhorn also panicked. No. They rushed to tell one another, summon the royal physician at once. And when he looked back at Adrian, he realized the one stabbed was that bastard. Suddenly, Gruhorn's consciousness blurred, his vision growing dim. Though unwilling, he only had time to think that at this rate he would faint for the first time in his long life as a sword. If Prince Adrian ascends the throne, this kingdom will have no future. He inherited none of the royal talent, yet led in arrogance. He has no ability, but his greed is the greatest in the kingdom. He is a stupid, lazy, and cruel pig. That is Crown Prince Adrian Leon Burke, like a black cloud over the kingdom's future. After the prince was stabbed and toyed with at death's door before reviving, a strange rumor began to spread. The servants began to gossip about Prince Adrian, saying he seems to have changed lately. That's right. He no longer flips tables like before. He no longer gathers his thug crowd, right? Then they started to sneer. Even the notorious crown prince should feel ashamed. Isn't he just lying still out of fear? Wait and see. After a while, he'll go back to his old ways. Meanwhile, Adrian was in his room. However, the protagonist of the story, Prince Adrian, paid no attention to those rumors. I can't believe it. His mind was in turmoil. He had killed his comrade's descendant and seized his body. Just then, an announcement sounded outside. "Your Highness, His Majesty has arrived. Please quickly tidy your attire to receive His Majesty." He frowned at the news. No, he didn't even bother to visit when I was dying. Why suddenly come now? A nearby attendant hurriedly reminded, "Your Highness, the royal knights of keen hearing are very close." She said cautiously, "Please mind your words." His teacher appeared with a scowl. "I heard you returned from the dead. but it seems that temper of yours is exactly the same. He took the opportunity to order, "You may step back, after all His Majesty expects nothing." However, Adrian was still confused. Who is this? Then his teacher suddenly challenged, "Do we still have a teacher-student bond, yet now you pretend not to know me?" This remark made him partly realize, so he's that pig's teacher. Meanwhile, the man continued, "Your Highness," Adrian hesitantly replied, "my memory is all scrambled. I feel like I remember who you are, but maybe I don't." He revealed an incredulous expression. "Huh, don't tell me." Just then a voice cut in. "His Majesty the King has arrived." Even so, Adrian remained indifferent. The king. He lazily thought to himself, so he must be that brat's father. But soon he widened his eyes in shock. "He's better than I thought." Before Adrian stood the emperor, cold and composed. "I thought with time the lion's blood would have been diluted into dog blood." He admitted to himself, but looking at the king, perhaps that's not the case. The emperor now spoke. "Seeing how you don't even bother to greet your father, apparently surviving an encounter with death hasn't changed you." His teacher immediately reported, "Your Majesty, I have just heard that His Highness's memory is not intact." A soldier blurted out, "My God, what a disaster! Why did the royal physician not report such a serious matter to your Majesty? Summon the physician to examine His Highness at once." After that, Adrian was examined by the royal physician again. Yet the physician remained convinced. "I found no abnormalities in His Highness's jade body." Then the physician offered a diagnosis. "However, it is possible this is a temporary condition caused by psychological shock." The emperor muttered, "Now, amnesia." And he felt anxious, as he realized, but the emperor sneered, "How convenient. If you say you remember nothing now." The emperor directly criticized, "Does that mean everything you have done up to now never happened?" Before he could understand, the emperor continued, "Sometimes people make wrong choices, commit deeds condemned by the world. If they later realize and never repeat the same mistake, that can be called a process of learning." With disappointment, the emperor snarled, "But you have forgotten all of that." Not only that, he scolded him. "Because everything has become as if it never happened, you haven't progressed a single step from past mistakes." Finally, the emperor declared, "And in the future you will never improve either." Then his teacher hurriedly intervened, "Your Majesty, please be less angry." Yet Adrian was still shocked. "He's cursing me to my face." Seeing him turn away, he cursed inwardly, "Damn it, I've really stepped in shit. Never mind being treated like a prince. It seems I'm not even regarded as human." Then Adrian looked at this body and wondered, what kind of life has this kid been living? Just then he was suddenly pulled away. "Adrian." The empress hugged him and comforted him. "I've heard everything. You must be very bewildered. Your memory will return soon." She even squeezed tighter, "No, that trivial past. So what if you don't remember it?" Then the empress gloomily said, "I never imagined your beautiful face would be so haggard, my poor son." Adrian shuddered at that. What exactly is haggard about? In return, she forced a smile, regardless. "I'm so happy you were able to open your eyes and wake like this." The empress gently counseled, "You absolutely must not touch dangerous objects like that again. If something bad happens and you don't wake up." Before she finished, she pressed her lips together bitterly. Then the empress sadly continued, "I truly cannot imagine it any further." Adrian felt slightly uneasy. "Sorry, but your son is dead." Thus the confusion in him stretched into the night. This really is a burden. After a while the empress finally let go. "I'll come visit you again. Rest and regain your strength." Thanks to that, Adrian could finally exhale in relief. And taking the opportunity, he reviewed everything. His comrade begged him to look after his descendant, and yet I killed one. Though unintentional, I am the one who ended his life. The more he thought, the more distraught he became. Since things turned out this way, what can I do? I must live well for the sake of the dead man, too. Then Adrian made up his mind. Being reborn as a sword, I've spent my life cleaning up others' messes. Though in a fat, talentless body that doesn't matter. With that thought, he clenched his fist. I just need to rebuild my power. He sneered with pride. "Do you know how many children I've raised?" Wasting no time, Adrian sprang up. "First, I need to forge a mana heart." He took a deep breath to draw in some mana. Then he concentrated, gathering it into a small energy source. The mana blazed, bright as a flame. However, the next moment it dissipated. Adrian himself was so shocked his face went blank. Fear washed over him and he broke into a sweat. The mana scattered, the body can't accept it. Adrian hurriedly amassed more mana. Again. This time he ground his teeth, trying to hold it. Once more, his whole body throbbed with the strange magic. But in the end, the result felled him. Gasping, Adrian cursed inwardly, "What the hell? What kind of monstrous body is this?" In despair, he shouted, "If I had my original body, I could easily change this constitution by forcing mana into it." Just then there was a knock at the door. "Your Highness, pardon the disturbance." Entering, the servant carried a steaming cup of tonic. "This is a special restorative the Empress sent. It may be bitter, but it will be very good for you." She tried to remain calm and said, "So please consider the Empress's kindness." Having spoken, the servant's face showed fear. In her mind, she recalled the past. Hopefully, he won't throw the bowl away like last time. Then Adrian had shouted, "I told you I won't drink medicine." But now Adrian was surprised that he immediately saw the mana contained within it. Decisively, Adrian grabbed the cup. He drank in one strong gulp and quickly emptied it. The action made the servant stare at him in astonishment. Then he roughly handed the cup back. "Satisfied? Now go." To that request, she hurriedly replied, "Yes, Your Highness." Adrian quickly refocused. "Good, now once more." He squeezed his eyes shut and poured all the mana into his hands. Feeling better, he breathed out. Fortunately, it worked. However, Adrian remained worried. The mana was still insufficient, and so little that it would dissipate after just one day, but, thinking that, he quickly called to the servant. "Hey," she responded immediately, "yes." He didn't beat around the bush and asked straight, "Do you still have that thing?" A few days later, the mana Adrian produced was more than before. Then he smiled in satisfaction. "Finally," he immediately exclaimed, "finally I can create a mana heart." The energy pressed into his chest. "I've done this countless times before, something like a mana heart I could do with my eyes closed." Suddenly, Adrian's face darkened. The sensation was so real that he suddenly realized. It hurts, thinking back. He briefly remembered previous descendants. It really hurt, like his organs were on fire and his chest was about to explode. Then Adrian understood. Right, creating a mana heart. He forced himself to breathe. It's always been this painful. But Adrian gritted his teeth. He must not lose consciousness. Thinking of the worst case, he reminded himself, "If I faint now, my mana will reflux." Then he closed his eyes, trying to stay calm. His hands held the heart, and he kept telling himself to concentrate. At the right moment, Adrian tightened his grip, seizing the block of mana that was trying to run wild. No need to rush. At the same time, he regulated the mana flow, guiding it along the channel running down the heart to the right. And gradually, everything became as calm as still water, letting the new heart seep in slowly. Adrian also absorbed them patiently. After a while, he slowly opened his eyes to check. Seeing it was fine, he exclaimed joyfully, "All right." Adrian was even excited. "This time it's not a mana heart made for someone else. It's my own mana heart and only for me." With that pride, he shouted, "I did it. It's finished." As he celebrated, the system panel suddenly appeared. "I have created a mana heart." He was so stunned that his face froze for a few minutes. Then Adrian paused. "Is this a status window?" To verify, he even tried touching it. "It's exactly like the status notifications I used to send to my masters when I was a sword. Why is it appearing for me now?" At that moment, the system suddenly activated. What wait? Seconds later, he was surrounded by countless notifications. What the hell? In the end, the system granted 1,000-mile eye and favorable wind ear. Adrian was puzzled powers. In that instant, his vision suddenly zoomed in. Adrian could even observe individual leaves. "Indeed, I can see more clearly than before." Moreover, he briefly heard several voices within the sounds. "Can't you hear what's being said?" Everything outside reached his ears. "Don't you know his temperament? He's probably making a big fuss." Adrian was surprised. "I can even hear the noises outside the door." However, a headache soon cut him off. The system immediately notified as well. Mana depleted. Adrian suddenly realized. So that's it. This is the meaning of extremely limited. At the same time, he felt regret, discovering everything in every direction with not a single blind spot. The absolute senses I had when I was a sword have now disappeared. Standing in the wide room, he thought to himself, "With only this scrap of mana like a mouse's tail, I can only eavesdrop on sounds outside the door or see things a little more clearly." Adrian reassured himself. "Perhaps things will change once I expand my mana pool." No sooner had he finished than his stomach let out a long growl. His mood immediately soured. "I'm hungry." The servant reacted quickly. "Food will be brought up right away." Adrian, meanwhile, told himself to first focus on adapting to this human body. Not long after the meal, the Empress entered cheerfully, praising him repeatedly. "Well done. You finished every drop of the tonic your mother sent. At last, you understand how to cherish your own body." Just then someone appeared and the Empress suddenly said, "Ah, yes." She asked him, "Do you recognize who this is?" Adrian immediately denied it. "No, ma'am." Hearing that, she worriedly instructed Vale. "It seems he truly has amnesia, so you must help this child, brother." Adrian overheard and guessed faintly. "I'd been wondering who he was. It turns out he's the Empress's brother." Meanwhile, the Empress was persuading him. "After all, isn't he one of your grandnephews?" On that side, Vale only snorted. "You speak as if he lost something important. Anyway, it's not a pleasant past. Adrian immediately judged, just from looking it's clear he doesn't like me. In response, he began to growl. Let me make one thing clear, Vale declared bluntly. All I can do for you is help trim off some of that excess fat. Then he emphasized, I can't give you anything beyond that, so abandon those useless expectations. The Empress hurriedly nodded. That's more than enough. Still, Vale repeated, don't forget that feeling. In that situation, only he remained confused, and facing Adrian was Vale's intimidating stare. When they reached the training yard, he shoved Adrian to the ground without mercy. Then Vale announced sternly, from now on, eating, drinking, breathing, you must get my permission for everything. If you expect to be treated like a prince, give up that thought. He sneered, try your best. Who knows, I might change my mind and teach you some secret sword techniques of our family. Adrian couldn't believe it. Ridiculous. This is the trainer who taught the undefeated knights and was the master of the founding king who built this nation, me. Nevertheless, Vale continued to mock him. Look at that wobbly fat, you're probably seething with resentment. Suppressing his anger, he spoke, Uncle, let's make a bet. Adrian faced him squarely and proposed. Within half a year, I will make you acknowledge me. I will smash that arrogant look from your face. He added a condition. If I fail, I'll do anything you say, Uncle. However, if I succeed, you must grant me one wish. Vale seemed interested. Intriguing. Then he agreed. Fine, it's decided. I should have at least one thing for entertainment. But it wasn't long before Adrian shouted, this damned body. He looked at himself and regretted having spoken so boldly. Without hesitation, he immediately poured mana into his legs. Jogging, Adrian thought, I have to use mana. For now, I'll focus on burning away the excess fat across my whole body. The moment he sensed it, Vale flinched. That brat, don't tell me. He rushed over to stop him. Adrian, you. Vale deliberately slowed down to observe the flow of mana around him. Then he hurriedly asked, did you really create a mana heart? As for Adrian, the corner of his mouth twitched. This, huh? Then he deliberately boasted, yes, I just made it a moment ago. What's wrong? Regret betting now. However, he was met with scolding. What the hell were you thinking making a mana heart? Vale urgently questioned further. No, forget that. Where on earth did you learn to forge a mana heart? Look at you, you don't even seem to know what you did wrong. Adrian was puzzled on his side. A mana heart. But the next words shocked him. It's a crude technique only low-tier mercenaries learn. He began to mouth the word, that. Adrian couldn't help but shout, what the? Adrian broke into a sweat. It's truly the end of an era. The earlier words echoed in his head. A mana heart is merely a crude technique only low-level mercenaries learn. Adrian's expression mixed horror and astonishment. Regaining his composure, he hurriedly asked, what do you mean? Vale immediately replied, it's faster if I just show you. With that, he formed a mana ring. Take a good look. Adrian's eyes widened in amazement. Mana took the shape of a ring. Then in the next second, he threw the ring at Adrian. The moment it touched him, it shattered Adrian's magic. Vale explained that mana chains have the property of breaking the sword chi of a mana heart, and they're much easier and more stable than mana hearts. He even recounted that the Eli clan, those who stubbornly clung to mana hearts, collapsed completely a century ago. No one uses mana hearts anymore. Adrian was now glued to the book. Times really have changed. He quickly scanned the entries. Mages use circles, while knights weave chains to accumulate mana. A knight's rank is divided by the number of chains woven. 1 chain, 2 chain, 3 chain, 4 chain, and 5 chain. Reading this, Adrian declared, I don't think it's completely useless trash. Then he muttered a name, Altringen, Altringen. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere. Quickly, Adrian remembered an old memory. He began to recall. Long ago, Ernest spoke up, are you that famous sword saint? He seized him and proclaimed, my name is Ernest Altringen. I'm here to see who truly deserves the title of Sword Saint. Adrian still remembered the details. Someone had come to me using a strange, forbidden technique, neither swordsmanship nor magic. Along with that, he suddenly smiled. No wonder the name sounded familiar. Adrian grew curious. Whatever happened to that man? The next morning began as usual. Adrian, as always, went out to warm up in the yard first. Just then Vale asked abruptly, did you read that book last night? He approached and said, you must now understand the situation. How foolish your choice was. However, Adrian merely shrugged nonchalantly. Then he replied calmly, I don't feel I've made even the slightest mistake. He sighed at that. You won't admit it, or you still don't grasp the situation. In return, Adrian confidently displayed his mana. Not all mana hearts are the same. He declared confidently, have you heard of differences in rank? Still, Vale looked down on him. I wonder what nonsense you're spouting. He told him a story. Sometimes mercenary bands produce people like you, deluding themselves their heroes from centuries past. Do you know how they end up? Vale emphasized their fate. They all fall, many unable even to get past 2 circles. He then taunted. If you truly differ from them, try defeating a two-chain knight. Vale sneered smugly. If you do, I'll become your guardian as your mother wishes. Facing him, Adrian answered calmly. Would having you as my guardian really be good for me? I'm not so sure. With that, the atmosphere between them chilled instantly. After a pause, Vale suddenly asked, Are you questioning my qualifications as guardian? With that, he unleashed his authority. I am a Count of the Kingdom and the Commander-in-Chief of the Northern Army. Then Vale stamped his foot hard. Lord of the Black Spear Cavalry and one of the 5 silver lions serving his majesty. A pressure burst around him as he wove 4 circles. Vale's eyes glinted, a 4-chain knight. Then he threatened in a raised voice. Vale Balorhard, that is the man who may stand behind you. Adrian seemed pushed back. Is that qualification sufficient now? At the same time, the royal knights began to move. Their swords were drawn with decisive speed. From Vale's side, they quickly closed in. Stand down, Count Balorhard. Nevertheless, he only responded with a smug look. Meanwhile, Adrian smirked. And don't go back on your word later. After a while, he was so exhausted, he collapsed to the ground. That's enough for today. Because training had ended, Adrian could rest a bit. However, he still trembled. That was almost lethal. Adrian recalled Vale. He dared challenge me thinking he'd earn my recognition with that nerve. 2 chains. You'd be lucky to beat a 1-chain. Thinking that, he cursed under his breath. That damn name like a demon. When he returned to his room, someone greeted him. Your Highness, I've been waiting for you. Adrian exclaimed. The royal physician. He cautiously replied, I'm grateful your Highness remembered this lowly one. In turn, he asked blankly, why is the royal physician here? The physician quickly explained. The Empress ordered healing magic for you. After speaking, he gently invited him. Come, your Highness, this way. However, Adrian objected immediately. No. He chased him off without hesitation. I don't need it. Now go away. Then Adrian swore, planning to ruin all the hells I endured today. Is that it? Carl beside him looked at him with concern. A few days later, today was another clear day. However, Jillian barged in fiercely. Oh, your Highness, you're here too. Upon meeting him, he immediately put on an arrogant air. Adrian, who was eating, froze. He finished the bite in his mouth and wondered, who is it this time? Just then Carl reminded him. That's the 3rd prince. Adrian was surprised. 3rd prince? That kid. As for Jillian, he replied casually. I heard you had an accident, but you look better than I expected. Pity. Adrian answered indifferently. So what do you want to say, just here to pick a fight? Must be nice being a prince with so much time. That made him grimace. What right does a fool who stabbed himself have to talk? Putting that aside, Jillian said casually. I just heard some interesting news. His tone turned mocking. I hear you bet Count Balorhard you'll fight a 2-chain knight. Jillian sneered about that. Without hesitation, Jillian proposed. How about I be your opponent? After the challenge, Adrian just nodded. I see. Still, he was annoyed. What the hell was that guy? Why are all Leon Burke's descendants like this? Then Carl answered again. 3rd Prince Jillian has been famous for sword skill since childhood. Adrian asked in surprise, what that brat? To that question, Carl said he wove 2 circles at 14, really fast. Adrian exclaimed, really. Suddenly a servant rushed in to report. Your Highness, sorry to interrupt, but she carried a stack of letters and said, there are letters here addressed to you. Adrian's expression turned suspicious. Letters? Why would people who never paid attention to this body suddenly? As he skimmed the letters, his brow tightened slightly. Adrian fell silent, leaving them puzzled. He read the letters slowly. I apologize for the last incident, Your Highness. I boldly request a duel. If you still have trouble finding a challenger, please grant me the opportunity first. Adrian quickly concluded. In short, it's an excuse to legally beat that scoundrel. That's what they mean, right? Anger flared and he frowned. Seems I've become an easy target, haven't I? Adrian immediately called out. Hey, she reacted at once, yes. Now he angrily demanded. Write down the names of everyone who sent these letters for me. After that meal, Vale suddenly tossed out a sword. Adrian looked at him in confusion. Vale didn't beat around the bush. Pick up the sword. Then he explained. You should know some swordsmanship for the bet to mean anything. I don't want to hear excuses that you lost because you weren't taught the basics. Seeing that, he picked up the sword thinking, just hand it over properly next time. What a strange personality. At that moment, Adrian suddenly shivered. His whole body trembled, his muscles aching terribly, and Vale quickly noticed. Wait. He held him back and asked, You're not accepting the healing magic. Adrian replied in surprise. As a knight, you should know this well. He calmly pointed out the issue. Healing magic only restores muscles to their original state. It doesn't make them grow. Vale nodded in understanding. Right. Then he returned to a serious expression. Anyway, that's not what I intended to discuss today. Vale immediately drew his sword. I won't repeat this many times, so watch closely. He poured mana into it. This is the technique Kingdom Knights learn to build a foundation, the Kingdom's sword training. For a moment, the sword's motion slowed. Then at the right moment, Vale widened his eyes. Each stroke flew out with decisive force. Not stopping there, he spun and swung the sword to the left, then changed direction and hacked to the right. Finally, he gripped it and raised the blade high. At the finishing blow, Vale delivered a wind-tearing slash. The dust and smoke around him were swept away along the blade's path. Adrian stood there stunned, his face slack with shock. Gradually, he asked, just now, "Did you say that's the foundational sword technique Knights learn?" Caught off guard, Vale clicked his tongue in annoyance. But he soon admitted, as a training blade it may lack sharpness, yet it's true to the fundamentals. There's no better technique for beginners. With your talent, it might even be a bit much. As soon as he finished speaking, Vale heard laughter. On the other side, Adrian was clutching his face and laughing loudly. No matter how much time passed, he was recalling an old memory. Dragon Slayer sword, the great technique that once beheaded even frenzied dragons. Thinking that, he found it hard to believe his great art was now regarded as a mere training technique. Meanwhile, Vale warned, "Of course this alone won't win the bet. After mastering the basics, you can ask your mother to hire another teacher, or..." But Adrian cut him off immediately. No need. Adrian declared flatly, "I won't learn any other sword technique. This is enough." At that determined look, Vale raised an eyebrow. In the end, he said indifferently, "Do as you wish." And so Adrian practiced continuous sword swings. At the same time, he reflected that the Dragon Slayer technique is now treated as a common training drill. Adrian lifted his sweat-soaked face. Though reluctant to admit it, perhaps it was natural. He soon realized one thing. That Dragon Slayer sword was lacking the will to slay dragons. Then he was convinced that those who discarded their mana hearts and forgot to channel will into the blade couldn't possibly see the true value of the Dragon Slayer. At that moment, Vale suddenly blocked his blade. The unexpected move stunned Adrian. Then he earnestly instructed, "Strength doesn't flow into the sword because you tense your arms. Have you already forgotten what I taught?" As he instructed, Vale tapped his stomach. "Channel the force into your gut." Then he struck Adrian hard in the leg, and the other leg too. The sharp pain made him buckle to his knees. You must channel force correctly through your whole body to use the sword. Even so, he listened intently. Right. Adrian quickly stood up. Though this current body is a weak, clumsy frame that can't even mimic the fake Dragon Slayer technique. With determined will he grip the sword. And I will prove the Dragon Slayer is not some outdated scrap metal to be tossed aside like an old, torn shoe. In the following days, his steps grew stronger. 1 day, 2 days. Today, Adrian still kept running. 3 days. After running, he practiced basic swings. A week passed. He also kept training his mana, and then a month went by. At the moment he was striving, the system suddenly reported progress. Adrian immediately paused as it kept updating. Along with that, his posture became more polished. His blade work grew sharper and noticeably more agile. And the more he practiced, the more excited Adrian became. He unconsciously immersed himself in it. The sword felt more natural than a month ago. Suddenly, voices around him shouted to stop, but Adrian ignored them completely. Stronger than yesterday, his gaze fixed on the blade. Vale still tried calling him to stop, but he continued swinging, even more perfect than before. Only when Vale shouted did he snap back. "Didn't I tell you to stop?" His sword simultaneously splintered and fell apart everywhere. In the midst of the pouring rain, only 3 people remained on the yard. Red blood began to spread in Adrian's hand. It even dripped down, dyeing the rainwater red. Then Adrian looked over bewildered. "Uncle." His eyes then unconsciously turned forward. What struck Adrian's eyes was a wooden post charred and smoking. Under the cold rain, the post still steamed with heat. So shocked that he froze in place. Vale beside him exclaimed, "You foolish boy, training on a day like this. If it were a real sword, you wouldn't have survived." His scolding made Adrian look back slowly. Only then did Adrian notice his calloused hands. Next, he heard the system announce, "Super Focus has been newly created." Unable to contain his emotions, Adrian suddenly laughed. But exhaustion immediately struck. "Focus 2 more times and I'll be struck by lightning." Carl, seeing him faint, rushed over. "Your Highness." Meanwhile, Vale looked at Adrian with a puzzled expression. Though he had fainted, Vale still muttered a scolding. "That stupid brat." Time passed, and after a while Adrian opened his eyes. Upon waking, he shot upright. "I fainted just now." Then he sighed inwardly. "I don't know the limits of this body. As a sword, I had achieved every possible honor. Unknown war hero, sword saint, king of mercenaries, founding hero, leading battles to victory, elevating both body and spirit. I guided the path for heroes. Gruhorn, a wise counselor and an excellent teacher, yet an existence that always stood aside like a third party." Back in the present, Adrian inspected his burning hand. He recalled the feeling before. That's why I swung the sword until I reached that realm, intoxicated by turning all sweat, effort, and toil into my own. Adrian's hand clenched. At this rate, this frail body will soon collapse. I need to balance mind and body. With that thought, he quickly closed his eyes. It's been over a month since I formed the mana heart. I've accumulated quite a bit of mana since then, so perhaps I'll soon move to the next stage. No sooner had he finished than the stream of mana began to rise. His mana heart simultaneously manifested clearly. The flames around it flared brilliantly, shifting from a pale blue to a deeper, denser blue. The next moment, Adrian restrained it within his hand. The muscles in his body grew at the same time. Even his bones gained added solidity. When the process finished, Adrian quickly opened his eyes. Feeling the change clearly, he cried out with joy, "It's done." Immediately, he glanced at the sword to see. Adrian took it without hesitation. When he tried a swing, the system promoted him to apprentice swordsman. Holding the sword, he felt more confident. With this, I can grasp the fundamentals. That same day, Vale suddenly brought up a topic. Rumors are spreading across the kingdom. Adrian looked surprised. Rumors. Vale snorted in annoyance. About your wager, because of it even I am greatly bothered. Then he urged, wouldn't it be better if you quickly found a dueling opponent? Adrian responded, oh, that matter. Adrian soon reverted to a sly look. As for the opponent, I've already decided who that will be. He also probed. More importantly, uncle, it will be hard for you to face someone using a double chain right away, so how about I fight a few single chain men first? Vale replied at once, that's up to you. Hearing the answer, Adrian turned to Carl. Carl, how is that thing I asked about? To that question, he quickly produced a sheet of paper. Yes, Your Highness, I have arranged as requested. This is the list of people who submitted challenges to Your Highness. Carl was somewhat worried. But Your Highness, do you really intend to spar with them? Adrian nonchalantly asked, what if I do? He also carefully analyzed. Most of these people hold grudges against Your Highness. They could intentionally harm you under the guise of a duel. However, Adrian showed no fear. I know precisely for that reason, he calmly proposed. Will you act as referee for me, uncle? Not wanting to trouble him, Adrian said, I don't ask for much. Just prevent anyone from dying during the matches. Can you help me with this small favor? A few days later, on the day of the first match, Taylor arrived and marveled. This is. Before him stood a magnificent tower, the Grand Prince's palace. This is where that rascal lives. Then he began to confide. My name is Taylor Tailheim, the second son of a Chinese letter noble family. A few years ago, Adrian mocked him. Look at that messy appearance. He bluntly criticized them from their clothes to their manners. He reeks of a country bumpkin. Look at him, excited just to attend a royal banquet, which enraged him. My father and brother have borne an indelible humiliation from that rogue prince. Taylor's expression darkened. The family's honor has plunged into the abyss, and my father and brother have been the laughingstock of the nobility to this day, Adrian Leon Burke. Then he stepped into the arena with resolve. Today I will make you pay for that day. I salute you, Your Highness, Grand Prince Adrian Leon Burke. Taylor introduced in a hoarse voice. I am Taylor, second son of the Tailheim family. I am an apprentice knight, single-chain rank, and the heir to the Tailheim sword style. But Adrian only exclaimed, my goodness, why so formal for a practice match? It's not an official duel. He even wondered, is he really a knight? He looks so frail. This time Taylor flew into a rage. Just as rumored, he's both rude and arrogant, unaware of his place and lacking common sense. At that moment, Vale intervened. Enough. He came to Taylor's side and reminded him, I understand how you feel, but the match hasn't started yet. Restrain your momentum. At the sight of Vale, his eyes lit up. My lord, Count Balorhart. Taylor hurriedly bowed. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Vale politely replied, yes, pleased to meet you. Adrian nearby sighed. People might think my uncle is the prince. Vale reproached calmly. In the past, you should have behaved more properly. This remark annoyed him a bit. Good grief, always bringing up the past. Then he stepped between them and signaled. Both of you take your places, the match begins. Taylor's face turned serious, while Adrian remained indifferent. The next moment, his mana chain surged powerfully. He curled the corner of his mouth. Well then, Your Highness. Shouting a warning, Taylor lunged forward. Please be careful. In an instant, he leaped out of his stance. Taylor's whole body followed the sword aimed straight at Adrian. On this side, he nonchalantly remarked, too many unnecessary moves. Then Adrian easily blocked the attack. Only then did Taylor realize, that's a mana heart. Before he could recover, he was hurled backward by him. Taylor cried out in panic. How can a mana heart block a mana chain? Meanwhile, Adrian was thinking, is it because he only has one circle? Adrian began to channel mana. It only felt a slight tingling. The change in aura left him astonished. The soldiers were also stunned by the sound emanating from the sword. That was. As for Vale, he quickly recognized it. A resonant sword. In that situation, Taylor muttered, "This can't be." In a furious burst, he rushed forward to attack. This can't be happening. The sudden action made him flinch a bit, yet Adrian nimbly defended in time. The opponent launched frantic strikes, forcing him to take a step back, and immediately after, the blades clashed powerfully again. The difference in strength sent Taylor sliding across the arena. Now both paused at a distance, each breathing heavily. Adrian thought to himself that they said circle mana doesn't match heart mana, and that turned out to be true. He smirked as he touched his heart, feeling mana reflux could happen at any moment. Then he began to speak, however. "You say you're the Viscount's second son, right?" This time Adrian directly taunted him. "You need to cool your hot head a bit." After saying that, he quickly closed his eyes, focusing on his senses. His vision shifted, plunging Adrian into deep waters. Seizing the opportunity, he reached out, awaken, and Adrian drew closer to the evil dragon. Whether it was a demon blade or a holy sword, or countless other names, the moment he touched it, light flashed. A part of my soul, the slumbering evil dragon, simultaneously opened its eyes, and Adrian slowly merged with it, the sword's memories from its last activation, and the essence of the heart forged to slay dragons, along with the system announcement, the dragon-slaying heart beats once. In an instant, Adrian's eyes turned blazing red. The evil dragon now surrounded him, forged for the purpose of dragon slaying. This was the true power of the dragon-slaying sword. As for Taylor, the dragon's killing intent threatened him. Fear overcame him and he trembled. What exactly was that? Meanwhile, Vale loudly intervened. "Stop." But Adrian had lost his reason and charged straight on. Seeing Adrian's manner, he immediately realized that the sword was very dangerous. Returning to before, he suddenly made a request. "Uncle, I want to ask a favor before we spar." Vale looked over at once. "What is it?" Adrian calmly said that if it looked like he was about to kill his opponent. At that moment, as Vale touched the sword, in the blink of an eye he closed in on him. "You must be the one to stop him, Uncle." Vale immediately knocked Adrian away, sending him crashing into the stone wall. Then he continued to stand between Taylor and him. As for Adrian, he seemed unconscious after that blow. However, Vale himself also had a sword pointed at him. The soldiers around immediately demanded an explanation. "Count Balorhard, what have you done? Depending on the circumstances, you could be charged with regicide." But he spoke up to explain. "Step back, I asked my uncle to do that." Carl was stunned when he heard it. "Your Highness." In return, Adrian now awkwardly wiped blood from his mouth. "I did ask him, and in the end I still fell. I never said to knock me unconscious, which made them shout urgently, 'Your Highness.'" After the battle, the dragon-slaying heart gradually calmed down. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. "I thought my mana heart was about to shatter." Meanwhile, Adrian reflected that his uncle's strength was truly different from those nameless foot soldiers. "And I took that blow head-on." With satisfaction, he smiled. "Luckily, there don't seem to be any lasting side effects, though it still hurts." Then he became smug. "Anyway, everything turned out fine. After all, I won the match." Just then Vale spoke up. "What are you laughing at?" Adrian turned, puzzled. "Yes." Seeing him, he curiously asked what wind had brought you here. Vale instead challenged him. "What on earth did you do?" His tone was sharp. "What the hell is that corrupt sword? I never taught you such a sword technique." But he replied seriously, "I'm simply being true to the sword's nature." This answer made him frown. He dares speak of the sword's nature without having faced real combat. But Vale gradually relaxed. So the sword's nature as it understands it is killing intent. No matter how brutal or unsettling it is still a truth. This time Adrian sneered, quite the surprise. He mockingly retorted, "I thought you'd lecture me about the way of the sword being the perfection of the blade or something, and then give a long, tedious speech." On the other hand, Vale bluntly declared, "I am a soldier, not a knight. I walk the path of victory rather than the path of righteousness." He then continued, however. Vale warned sternly, "Your sword has gone too far. If your killing intent becomes too great, you won't be able to tell friend from foe." Seeing this, he deliberately looked away. "And that's why you're making such a fuss to fix it." At that, he also declared, "I will watch you. I'll see whether the demon within you will devour you." And after the 3 days of sparring ended, the sword suddenly struck the ground hard. Adrian abruptly started a conversation. "You said you're Taylor Tailheim, right?" He praised sincerely, "Well done, over the past 3 days." In Adrian's mind, he thought that Taylor had to endure strikes filled with unrestrained killing intent for 3 days straight. Indeed, he had suffered a lot. Then Adrian went on to guess, "But it's a pity. You would probably feel better if you had at least beaten me once, but you couldn't." Taylor here hesitated. About that. Before he could answer, Adrian called someone over. "Bring that here." With the chest in the maid's hands, Taylor was surprised. "Your Highness, what is this?" He quickly explained. "I heard I did some terrible things to you in the past. I don't know if this will make up for it." Adrian included a message. Please deliver this to Viscount Talheim. It's nothing much, just some gold and a letter. When finished, he left coldly. Now go and safe travels. Inwardly, Adrian was convinced he had no duty to clean up the mess that bastard made. But then Taylor blurted out, "Thank you, Your Highness." Adrian continued to rationalize to himself that, after all, if you make someone do work, you should pay them properly. Thus, the sparring match of that rogue prince became a hot topic across the kingdom. His arrogance had dug his own grave. Many people gossiped that the crown prince would surely pay dearly for past mistakes. How much humiliation would he suffer? However, despite waiting many days, the news everyone expected did not come. Question: Taylor was surprised. You ask how the match went. With him, countless others eagerly recounted. There seems to be some misunderstanding. The crown prince isn't as terrible as rumored. Both sides did their best in the match, that's all. Threaten? I merely understood Your Highness's heart. That left most mouths agape. What's going on? Surely the royal family has silenced them. Only Adrian slammed the table in anger. And when those involved heard this, shut that monkey up. He barked irritably that they kept quiet only, because they were ashamed of losing to him. He even muttered that these nobles had too much time on their hands and should do something more useful. Vale nearby teased, "You have the right to say that." Adrian ignored him and immediately looked at the man he had just fought. This time he warned carefully, "When you go out, be sure to spread the result of the match too, understood?" The man quickly nodded, "I will." Because of that, he felt somewhat satisfied. Now the rumors should quiet down, right? However, not long after, Adrian received shocking news. What? Before him, a servant hesitantly said, "Well, there's a rumor that Your Highness threatened him to fabricate the match result." He was left speechless. All his anger turned into training resolve. Forget it, let's just keep practicing, all right." Adrian immediately delivered a perfectly precise slash. Not stopping there, he deftly launched another strike. Then he spun, gripping his weapon with both hands, pushing his strength into the blade as he brought it down. And though it ended, the mana around it still burned fiercely. Adrian's heart had not completely quieted. Pondering, he suddenly asked how many challengers remained. Carl quickly replied that today's visitor was the last. Adrian, bored with the place, shook his head. "These trainee knights are no longer enough for me." Carl added that this last opponent was a knight who had received formal swordsmanship training. Carl also emphasized that this was someone dissatisfied with only polishing ancestral techniques, a talent who had joined the knights to train. His expression immediately brightened. A trainee knight of the Iron Lion Cavalry. Just then Arwen arrived, Arwen Kurgian. The gate guards couldn't help but gossip. "That's her, right? Look at the Iron Lion emblem on the armor, it's definitely her." Along with that, they whispered rumors. The flower on the cliff, the thorned rose, the woman who has broken countless hearts. On this side, she still strode slowly. The soldiers continued to marvel. She truly is a stunning beauty. Who would have thought such a woman would come here herself? They suddenly said something that made her stop. In some respects, the prince is talented after all. Arwen's gaze briefly turned cold. Anyway, with their judgmental voices, her stern demeanor became clear. Wouldn't it be ridiculous if the prince were embarrassed by that woman? The Iron Lion Knights, renowned as one of the kingdom's top knight orders in both prestige and skill. The trainee knight of this order, Arwen Kurgian, is a promising talent confirmed to become a full member. The more Adrian thought, the less he believed it. Why would such a genius come to duel me? Carl hesitated. "Well, there was a small misunderstanding between Your Highness and Sir Arwen before, but I cleared it up myself." "What misunderstanding?" "With my temper, I probably started it unilaterally." Then he directly asked Adelia, "You over there, tell me, what did I do back then?" At Adrian's request, she answered awkwardly, "Well, Your Highness." And what she said next horrified him. "The person who harassed Lady Arwen." Adrian then clutched his head and screamed, "That crazy bastard." In Adrian's recollection, at that time he suddenly touched Arwen. Then he invited her. "You said your name is Arwen. You're even more beautiful than the rumors say. How about it? If you want, you could come be my personal maid." But she immediately pushed his hand away. At the same time, Arwen bluntly declared, "Your Highness, a knight is not your personal property." Offended, he angrily shouted, "You ugly thing." After hearing this story, he was completely speechless. "That's what I heard from the servant." Then Adrian slowly lifted his eyes. It sounded like the sick flirtation of a rotten scoundrel. In front of him, Arwen stood there. There's no way anyone could look at her and call her ugly. She was cold, but remained beautiful in her own way. Shortly after, Arwen spoke first. "Long time no see, Your Highness. You haven't changed at all." He stammered in return, "I don't think so. I've changed a lot, you know, so much that the person inside is completely different now." Yet her look remained stern. "Yes, this is my karmic retribution." Just then Adelia informed them that Count Balorhart had arrived. As he passed Arwen, he paused for a few seconds. "She is." Arwen introduced herself. Trainee Knight of the Iron Lion Order, Arwen Kurgian, my respects, Count Balorhart. After hearing this, he warned, be careful, the prince's swordsmanship is quite vicious. Seeing that, he quickly complained, hey, where did your observer's impartiality go? Instead, Vale seemed unconcerned and added, very well. With his command, Adrian returned looking eager. Arwen immediately grew serious, and the two took their positions. Vale remained in his spot and announced, from this moment the duel will begin. As soon as he finished speaking, she snatched up her sword. Noticing this, Adrian looked forward to seeing what the Iron Lion Seed's skill was like. So he let Arwen attack first. He took in each movement with his eyes. Indeed, her footwork was very good. With the first strike, Adrian simply parried, but he unexpectedly felt pain. Mana was beginning to flow backward. Arwen started to frown behind her two blades. She added a bit more force and easily knocked Adrian back. What followed were a series of overwhelmingly superior strikes. Meanwhile, Adrian gradually sensed danger. He was being swept along by her style. This won't do. In that instant, Arwen lunged like a predator. He himself quickly activated the dragon-slaying heart. The unusual killing intent inadvertently distracted her, so the clash of blades rang out once more. The difference was that Arwen stepped back on her own. She landed lightly and very skillfully. Then Arwen, catching her breath, said in surprise, that sword. As for Adrian, he said with satisfaction that not every opponent is the same. She truly is on a different level from the small fry. Taking the opportunity, he suddenly activated judgment. However, all of Arwen's stats immediately flashed before Adrian's eyes. After reading them, he quickly pulled himself together. The fact that I can see this information with my power limited. The next moment, Adrian broke into a sly grin. Arwen simultaneously raised her guard, meaning she was weaker or at most equal to him. In an instant, he dashed forward very fast, and Adrian's opponent reacted in exactly the same way. As they charged at each other, he declared to her that the real fight begins now. Thus the battle gradually left Adrian battered. Arwen fared no better, continuously panting. Around them, the sky had already turned toward evening. At this point, Vale raised his sword to signal the end of the match. Then he called for them to stop. That's enough for today. We'll continue the match tomorrow. Adrian clicked his tongue. I was just about to finish it. Arwen confidently replied, what a coincidence, I was about to do the same. He out of habit taunted her. Oh, want to continue? And Arwen did not hesitate to say, if you wish, for as long as you like. But Vale intervened once more. That's enough. He looked to the royal physician. It's late. Both of you go get treated at once. On that, the physician eagerly approached him. Your Highness, let me treat you right away. While being tended, Adrian kept staring at her. Oh my, there's a bruise here too. He didn't bother to hide it and watched Arwen directly. Noticing that, she shot him a sidelong glance. However, both chose to ignore it and pass by each other. At the same time, they shared the same thought. I absolutely will not lose. In the following days, the soldiers began to buzz. No one could determine a victor. One person wondered, is this the third day already? The man beside him marveled. To be honest, I'm quite surprised. He whispered softly, I've heard a lot about Arwen's skill, but the Crown Prince's skill is equally impressive. Finally, they turned their attention to the training yard. I hope we get a result today. Then Adrian suddenly proposed. Before our next bout, I have something to say. Arwen guessed as soon as she heard it. Don't tell me you're about to apologize now. She immediately said sternly, I will not accept an apology. Adrian merely nodded. I understand, you want to regain your wounded pride by your own strength, that's admirable, but then he shrugged. Ah, not that. Then he smiled nonchalantly. Since we're fighting so fiercely, shouldn't there be a prize? What he said next stunned them. The loser must grant the winner one wish. How about it? If told to kneel, kneel. If told to bow and apologize, do it. Arwen hesitated and couldn't answer immediately. Other soldiers cried out, Your Highness, as a royal family member, how can you say such things? Please take back your words. Adrian immediately waved them off. Outsiders don't interfere. Why are there so many spectators? Then he turned to ask her, What do you think, Arwen? Quickly, she replied carefully, Though I am only a trainee knight, I am also a member of the order loyal to House Leon Burke. I would not dare commit such an impertinence toward your Highness. Arwen's demeanor shifted quickly. However, if that is permitted by your Highness, then perhaps I would also have the right to accept the wager's prize. This response pleased Adrian greatly. Clever thought. The next moment they lunged at each other like mad. Don't go back on your word later. This time Adrian attacked decisively, making the clash of steel piercing. Arwen was not inferior, unleashing wide sweeping strikes. Finding an opening, his eyes briefly flared red. Without waiting for her to steady herself, Adrian instantly lunged downward. In that moment, Arwen froze. Too fast, he wasn't this fast yesterday. And in her eyes, he now looked truly frenzied. Could he have been hiding his true strength? Gradually, the initiative reversed and pushed her back. Arwen made a very small slip, and the blade nearly grazed past. Once some distance opened, the arena descended into chaos. Arwen couldn't keep up and was thoroughly flustered. By contrast, Adrian charged forward full of killing intent. Both simultaneously swung their swords to strike and parry. In the end, one blade was knocked aside. Arwen collapsed helplessly, her weapon cleaved in two. At the training yard, many soldiers were even more astonished. Even Vale stood dumbfounded in shock. Meanwhile, she was still dazed. Impossible. Adrian's shadow stepped in front of Arwen. I won the bet. Then he pointed his sword at her and spoke. Arwen Kurgian, Adrian's mouth couldn't help curling, and he directly made his request. I want you. At that time, Karl was confiding about the position of royal guard for the crown prince, the kingdom's notorious bastard. Contrary to his worries, the job wasn't that difficult. On their first meeting, Adrian asked, "Are you the new royal guard?" He bowed carefully. "Yes, I eagerly await serving you, your highness." Karl internally judged that the prince seemed a bit arrogant. Outwardly, Adrian said coldly, "Very well, I'll be counting on you." And Karl noted that he wasn't the violently temperamental person rumors claim. Through each day of training, Karl focused his observations. The more he watched, the more he reflected. No, in fact, it was the opposite of the rumors. On that fateful day, Adrian still swung his sword despite the downpour. Then others began to worry. The rain's too heavy, should we stop his highness? Karl himself hurriedly called out, "Your highness, be careful." No sooner had he spoken than a bolt of lightning struck straight down from the sky. However, Adrian looked utterly satisfied. Seeing that expression, he was stunned. Inwardly, Karl unconsciously affirmed, "I have a feeling his highness will become a great man." Slowly, the recollection returned to the present. Just as he'd thought, Adrian then declared, "I want you." At first, the soldiers gaped in shock. How shameful. On the other side, Karl began to doubt. Did I misread him? As for Arwen, she slowly rose. Could it be? She demanded angrily, "Is that truly what your highness yearns for?" Adrian replied nonchalantly, "Of course. Given your current state, you're just a mediocre trainee knight. You couldn't even defeat a lowborn prince." At that, he smirked again. "So what I want is..." Adrian didn't hesitate. The potential and future of the knight named Arwen Kurgian. He also stated seriously, "I need a knight to follow me, not a guard assigned by royal decree." Karl flinched at those words. Adrian continued to explain, "A knight who belongs only to me and from what I see." Adrian glanced back at the status board and remarked, "You have quite good swordsmanship talent." His tone grew increasingly sincere. "Therefore, Arwen Kurgian." Adrian repeated his offer, "Become my knight." Meanwhile, she suddenly recalled the past. She had become the knight she always dreamed of, but snippets of gossip brushed her ears. Is that the child? They all thought the same. Indeed, it's as rumored. She has an exceptionally striking appearance, which angered Arwen. Nobody sees me as a real knight, so I doubled my efforts more than anyone else. In every battle, she easily defeated her opponents. Then came the familiar announcement, winner Arwen Kurgian. Even so, Arwen did not stop. Even after defeating every other trainee, she continued to swing her sword, completely overwhelming the target. Then Arwen repeated that cycle, producing the same result. In the end, everyone declared, "Isn't Arwen our poster figure? Protecting a beauty like her is an honor for any knight." Hearing that, she gradually gave up. "I'm not going to become a knight." Back in the present, Arwen's body trembled, but she stared at Adrian in disbelief. He wants my potential and my future as a knight. Doubtful, she asked herself whether he was sincere. But very quickly Arwen spoke up. "Please promise me one thing." She requested slowly. "Please treat me not as a woman, but as a knight." Arwen added cautiously that if he could do that, she would follow his highness's wishes. After she finished, Adrian only stared at her in silence. She did not flinch and waited for his reply. And finally he quickly nodded. "Very well, I promise." Upon hearing his answer, Arwen stepped back slightly, and beneath the sunset, she knelt directly before Adrian. At the same time, Arwen made a vow. "I, Arwen, eldest daughter of the Kurgian clan, swear loyalty to Prince Adrian Leon Burke." In front of everyone, she continued, "And I dedicate my sword and the rest of my life to your highness." Vale heard the whole thing but remained silent. Meanwhile, Adrian drew his sword. "As the legitimate heir of Leon Burke, in the name of Adrian Leon Burke, I dub you a knight." Arwen bowed her head to receive his counsel. "Be brave, be courteous." With the sky blazing red, he emphasized the last. "And be loyal." As time passed, Arwen returned to diligent practice. Some other soldiers began to gossip, swearing loyalty to that bastard. "Isn't that absurd?" And the oath came from a bet. "We have to cancel it somehow." The other shrugged. "But I heard she refused our help." Then the rumors twisted further. Heavens, from what I hear, there's something shady, some relationship with the prince maybe. Perhaps he couldn't publicly take her as a mistress for fear of scandal, so he hid it behind a knighthood oath. It was strange from the start. Why would she attend a dubious match organized by that bastard? When the news reached Adrian, he shouted, "That's insane. Am I some kind of villain?" He trembled with anger. Am I really the worst bastard in the world, huh? Carl stood by and watched quietly. Then he lowered his voice and said, "Your Highness." Carl went straight to the point. "About what you said that day, I still don't understand when." Seeing this, he reminded him. A few days ago, on the day of the final duel, Adrian heard and suddenly remembered. Not a knight assigned by royal decree to guard me. Oh, that matter. He quickly explained. Did that bother you? It's the truth. If a royal decree now ordered you elsewhere, wouldn't you go? Then Adrian began to tease. If you want, you can swear the oath later too, Carl. On the other hand, he hesitated and asked, if I say you'll carry out the oath, would you accept? But Carl immediately shook his head. No. At the same time, Adrian was blunt. I don't want you. Raising you holds no interest for me, Carl. He laughed happily at that. Is that so? Instead, Adrian thought to himself, I'm not joking. I'm serious. Later, a notification letter was in his hand. What have I done? Adrian himself was bewildered. He hadn't expected them to lift the curfew a month and a half early. A flash of that angry look crossed his mind. When they acted as if they'd lock me in the crown prince's palace and never see me again. He shook his head. I don't understand what that man was thinking. Meanwhile, Carl curiously asked, You're not happy the curfew's over, Your Highness? Adrian replied indifferently, I don't care much. Even if I leave the palace, I have nowhere to go and no one to see, for I know no one. As for Adelia, she suddenly gasped in shock. Then she awkwardly reported, Your Highness, I'm sorry. I just saw an invitation addressed to you. Adelia's manner made him cautious. An invitation. She hurriedly handed the letter to him. Yes, it's this one. Adrian took it at once and skimmed it. A social club for select young nobles. Adelia explained. It's a social gathering you used to be part of. This time you seemed surprised, me. Then he wondered aloud, is it some odd place? She looked embarrassed at the question. Well, Adelia hesitated. For a woman like you, the refined tastes of those young nobles are incomprehensible. He decisively brushed it off. So it's drinking and debauchery. Forget it, I'm busy enough training. Why would I attend such a pointless gathering? Suddenly, Adrian's eyes caught something. On the other side of the letter, someone named Eli respectfully sent word. Then concern gradually showed on his face. Eli. Immediately he recalled the information. A name I remember. According to my uncle, they were a family that resolutely pursued heart mana and ultimately declined 100 years ago. In the end, Adrian made a different decision. Perhaps I should attend. Adelia quickly accepted. Understood, I'll prepare your attire. Adrian privately thought, I hope that family hasn't completely fallen from power. After possessing the body of that rotten crown prince and beginning weight loss training, 4 months had passed. The tailor exclaimed excitedly, Your Highness, are you pleased with the outfit? I haven't missed any of your instructions. He proudly described every detail. The color is black. Holding up the new boots, he added, minimalist pattern. His appearance delighted the tailor. The design is simple, yet your dignity remains as imposing as ever, Your Highness. Adrian nodded as he admired it. I have indeed lost a lot of weight. The tailor blurted, Your measurements have shrunk by more than half. He casually said, I'll hand the entire outfit to the palace banquet tailor. The tailor's eyes lit up. I'll begin at once. Adrian smiled suddenly. No, wait a bit. By then my measurements will change again. Then he set out for the party, a few days after the curfew was lifted. I'm on my way to that damned social club for privileged young men. Carl continued as his knight and was assigned to guard him. In the carriage, Adrian yawned unconsciously. Being a prince is a tiring position. His mood wasn't much better. Clothes, carriage, guards, everything felt stiflingly oppressive. Suddenly, Adrian's attention shifted to something else. Across from him, Adelia flinched in fear when she was singled out. You. He looked at her neck and asked, What's that scar? Upon hearing this, she hastily apologized. It's due to my incompetence, Your Highness. It's because what you reprimanded me about was absolutely right. Meanwhile, Adrian began to regret again. Why does digging into this body's past reveal ever more horrifying stories like this? Seeing Adelia trembling, he grew curious. Come to think of it, I've had that maid serving me for months and still don't know her name. Then Adrian took the initiative and said, You, what is your name? Adelia replied accordingly. I am Adelia Bayern, Your Highness. His expression immediately turned stunned. Bayern. She murmured, That's a family barely on the noble lists, but Adrian thought otherwise. I never expected to hear that name again in a place like this. Among the countless memories in his mind, in a distant past when even city-states didn't exist, let alone kingdoms, among the many races across the continent. That was an era when weak humans were plundered and slaughtered as a matter of course. There were those who put an end to the history of that wretched race. At the end of the Great War, for the saviors who helped humans rise to become the continent's dominant species, people bestowed upon them the title of the 5 great vassals. In a glorious moment with red cloaks billowing, one of those 5 heroes, Agnes smiled at him as well, Gruhorn. Taking him in her hands, she casually asked, "Have you ever thought about that?" Before them, countless monsters surged forward. "What would you and I do after this war ends?" Yet Agnes's gaze showed no fear. In the blink of an eye, she vanished with incredible speed. Agnes charged straight at the leader, confronting it head-on, and then she performed a miracle. She beheaded Edda, king of the giants, ending a long era of exploitation. Agnes even tore it apart with precise sword strikes. With that memory, he called her name again. She was the iron-blooded sword vassal, Agnes Bayern. Meanwhile, growls erupted around Agnes. Before long, the giants had surrounded her. The bastards. Golden mana flared, sharpening her gaze. She cursed them non-stop. "Crawl back, did you think there's something to eat? You wretches, you only think about dark things." With hatred, she felled another one. "With its filthy body, scum like you." Still, her tone grew harsher. "You only choose to do disgusting things that sick people do. Crazed fools like you should be wiped out." Gruhorn was so terrified, he broke out in a sweat. Back in the present, he hurriedly covered his ears. "Just thinking about it dirties my ears." Gradually, Adrian lifted his head. After all, a descendant of Bayern. He stared at Adelia and wondered what on earth had happened to bring them to such a state. Just then Karl announced to him, "Your Highness, we've arrived." As usual, he opened the door and stood ready beside it. "Your Highness." Adrian sighed and stepped out. Perfect timing. After taking a few steps, he suddenly halted. Without hesitation, he pointed at Adelia. "Adelia, we'll talk later." With that, Adrian left the two of them in bewilderment. Meanwhile, Bernardo greeted him as he arrived. "Your Highness." He respectfully bowed and said, "I hope you've been well." Bernardo of the Eli family greets Crown Prince Adrian Leon Burke. Bernardo then beamed. "I cannot express how glad I am to see you safe." Adrian, however, was skeptical. This one a descendant of the Eli family. He looks like an idiot. But very quickly, Adrian was taken aback. He must have suffered a lot to become so thin. With that thought, he snorted coldly inwardly. Bernardo looked flustered. "Your Highness, is something wrong? Do you feel unwell?" Adrian immediately denied it. "No, nothing. I'm just glad I came." Then he patted the man on the shoulder. "Thanks to you, today will be interesting." With that, Adrian turned away in a very good mood. Before long, crude remarks reached his ears. And that girl lifted her skirt high as if she had no shame. Nearby, a lecher said, "That girl has such smooth skin." While the maiden shyly replied, "Oh, don't tease me, I hate it." Amid that atmosphere, only the two of them sat completely still. Bernardo found it strange now. Usually that scumbag would be dead drunk and flirting everywhere. He carefully assessed Adrian. His aura felt completely different from before. As he finished speaking, someone nearby suddenly sprang to his feet. Because he was drunk, he spoke casually. "I heard, Your Highness." His tone was sarcastic. "You've plucked the Iron Lion's flower. The rumors are spreading everywhere." Adrian merely glanced at him coldly. Then a few others quickly cut in. "You're late. We've had our eye on that woman for a long time. Had we known this would happen, we should have claimed her vow first." He sneered lecherously. "Just looking at her in that armor is beautiful. Imagine how amazing her body under that armor must be." At that moment, he suddenly asked, "Hey, do you have any siblings at home?" The man blinked in confusion. Then he answered as expected, "Have you forgotten? I have a younger brother." Hearing that, Adrian laughed. What a relief. And before the other could understand, a fist flew in. "What the?" Adrian promptly landed a staggering punch on him. The unlucky man toppled backward, his cheek already swollen and red. A glass on the table shattered, soaking the floor. At that moment, the nobles all went pale. Even Bernardo stood stunned in shock. Adrian cheerfully added, "Relieved that your line won't be wiped out." Immediately after, he kicked straight into his groin. With that, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the room. Adrian announced directly, "From now on, your younger brother will be the heir." Not stopping there, Adrian continued to swing his fist. This time he aimed for his face to beat him. Witnessing this, the onlookers were frozen in place. As for Bernardo, he went from shock to terror. Adrian grabbed his collar and pulled him back. Before taking another hit, the man blurted out, Why are you doing this, Your Highness?" To that question, Adrian said slowly, "Listen carefully." Adrian glared to intimidate him. "I can tolerate you thinking I'm a scumbag, but I cannot tolerate you treating me like one." The others were bewildered upon hearing this. What is he talking about? Meanwhile, he grew a bit angrier. "Meaning, you need to be beat a little more." That blow sent him sliding a long way across the floor. The atmosphere immediately sank because everyone was afraid. When Adrian approached, The nobleman was already unconscious. Seeing that, he called for Eli. The man quickly dropped to his knees. "Yes, Your Highness." With a delighted look, he joked to Bernardo. "Didn't I say earlier this would be interesting?" The scene made Bernardo tremble. Why is this madman acting like this all of a sudden? Then he suddenly ordered, "Go fetch the royal knights here." The man immediately rushed off. "Your Highness, I obey." As Bernardo left, the room returned to tense silence. Adrian glanced around and stopped at one spot. He immediately ordered, "The girls over there, leave this place." At the same time, one man watched him warily. Thinking Adrian didn't notice, he began to back away. But Adrian noticed immediately. "I said the girls." He added a threat. "If you want to leave, go ahead, but if you leave, you'll leave as women." Recalling what happened earlier, they froze in place. Seeing everyone obedient, Adrian slowly strode forward. His tone was gentle, like telling a story. "None of you knelt properly before a prince, nor showed any respect." He reminded them piece by piece. "You mocked me right in front of me." At that, he narrowed his eyes and insulted my knights. Still, Adrian deliberately asked, "In this case, what crime can be charged?" Sir Bernardo called out in response. "Because they scorned the royal family, that constitutes the crime of lese majesté." The nobleman's face went instantly pale. Karl continued to explain. "Moreover, because they challenged the authority of the crown, this is akin to treason." Then he stood solemnly beside Adrian. "Give the order, Your Highness. Who shall we make kneel?" At that question, the corner of his mouth curved up with delight. Very quickly, Adrian answered, "All of them." After that banquet, the emperor directly questioned him. "You caused a major incident the moment the curfew was lifted." He immediately recounted everything. 14 noble scions were arrested for lese majesté and treason. You attached to them every grave charge you could find. Finally, he growled, "Do you realize what you've done?" At that moment, the emperor was furious. "You've invoked the crown's authority. They must be punished severely, but with 14 implicated families, we cannot simply ignore the fierce backlash." As if understanding that, Adrian replied nonchalantly, "Father, are you worried about the backlash?" Then Adrian explained at will. "They are outcasts even within their own houses, irredeemable trash who only sully a family's name if kept." Next, he proposed a solution: send letters. The emperor frowned. Letters? To whom? Adrian didn't bother to skirt the point. "Ask, since you already know. Aren't there people better than anyone to handle the gossip within each house?" Adrian smiled as if it were obvious. "The siblings of those arrested scumbags." Having said that, he deliberately probed the emperor. "Am I wrong?" In the end, the emperor ordered them to withdraw. This pleased him greatly. "As you see, nothing more to discuss, right?" When he returned, Adrian feigned harmlessness. "Now you don't need to be so tense. I won't hurt you." Adelia trembled. "Your Highness, what exactly did this lowly maid do wrong?" Her reaction made him uneasy. That scumbag must have tormented her quite a bit. Adrian remembered what had been said earlier. That was a family that had barely made the noble register. He quickly concluded that even direct descendants knew nothing of Bayern. Their glorious history had been erased, and unrivaled techniques lost. Thinking that, Adrian felt somewhat indignant. Renowned prestige and towering pride. At that moment, he was using judgment to scan Adelia. Everything had vanished without a trace, and yet, the next second he started, wait, before him he clearly saw Butcher's Might and Berserker. What is with all these traits? A flash of Agnes's maddened aspect crossed his mind, while conversely Adelia only had the fragile heart trait. Adrian gaped in astonishment. She possessed unmatched talent, yet had no trait to rein in her madness. Then he gazed at her pensively. Would it be safe to unleash that madness upon the world? With that thought, he deliberately stepped back from Adelia. Adrian quickly resolved, "I have to try." He soon plotted, "After all, it's an S-rank talent, and conveniently there's a trait I can exploit." The skill he intended to use was called servility, a trait that feels extreme happiness in the existence of the master it devotedly serves. So Adrian immediately exclaimed, "Adelia Bayern, swear loyalty to me." In response, she was very surprised. "Yes, what do you mean by that?" But he insisted, "I said become my knight right here, right now." As expected, she hurriedly kneeled. "Your Highness, this lowly maid cannot undertake such a role." Then he began to lay out conditions. "You say your family is obscure. I will take responsibility for your house." Adrian's tone turned serious. "In return, you must swear loyalty to me and serve me as your master." After he finished speaking, he watched her expression. "If you cannot control the madness yourself, I will take the reins for you." As for Adelia, she asked awkwardly, "Will you truly take responsibility for my house?" He answered promptly, "Yes." Then Adrian affirmed, "If you wish, I will summon them to the capital so you can meet them any time." This time she looked very happy. I will follow your words." Then Adelia hurriedly bowed. "Adelia, eldest daughter of the Bayern family, swears loyalty to your Highness, Grand Prince Adrian Leon Burke." On her part, she spoke quietly. I will serve you as my master and dedicate my life to you." When she finished swearing, he reached out his hand. "Good," Adrian declared directly. "From now on you will obey my orders unconditionally." She immediately replied, "I obey." In that moment, Adelia gradually showed an unusual excitement. That reaction left him rather puzzled. Was this the right choice? Since the day I took Adelia as my personal maid, the rumors about Adrian have only grown louder. They say the crown prince, who's been unusually quiet lately, has started acting like a brute, not only using vile tricks to force knights to swear loyalty, but that he also summons noble children, beats them and throws them into prison. Now people say he even granted a servant girl, who has never wielded a sword, the title of his personal knight, clearly trying to set up a harem under the guise of personal knights. His face darkened, and he forced himself to ask, "Why is everyone suddenly so interested in me?" Adrian Leon Burke had 1,000 unanswered questions. "I only took one personal knight, yet since I woke, everyone has something to say. Take, for instance, my beloved old father, Emperor Leon Burke. I'm dealing with the mess your children caused, and you go off indulging in women." Then came the familiar bite of sarcasm from Scarred Vale. "Pathetic. Have you given up that wager?" Even young Gillian Leon Burke sneered over this. "Granting a servant girl the rank of knight is so like you, brother." These words swirled in his head, and he stood there helpless, wondering how the rumor spread so fast. At that moment, a maid entered to announce, "Your Highness, the Empress has arrived." Adrian Leon Burke jumped up in a rage to protest, "Oh, come on." Moments later, Empress Leon Burke appeared, her voice full of disappointment. "I thought you had reformed. It seems you intend to return to your old ways." She spoke in a low tone as if something weighed on her. "Actually, this is for the best." The next line made Prince Leon Burke's face go pale. "Once you choose a wife and settle down, you'll surely stop wandering." The Empress furrowed her brow and declared resolutely, "Trust me, this time I will find you a worthy wife." No sooner had she finished than she left without giving Adrian a chance to answer. He was left speechless. A moment later, he summoned Adelia Byrne to his chamber. "So does that mean I will have mana now?" Adrian Leon Burke smiled and nodded. "Yes, a very special kind of mana." True to his word, blue magic appeared in the palm of his hand. As it stimulated the energy within Adelia, it shifted to gold. "Though the world has long forgotten sword servants, I forget nothing." The footsteps she left behind, the sword dancing on the tip of his finger. The soul of the sword servant embraced Adelia in its arms. And the one thing indispensable to a true swordsman was the majestic beat of her very own heart. When the mana was fully absorbed, the system announced, "Adelia Byrne has sensed mana." Adrian anxiously awaited the next result. "You have successfully inscribed mana onto Adelia Byrne. The mana has formed successfully within her body." Then her eyes widened, shining brightly. A mana heart had been created. Adelia's cheeks flushed with astonishment as she whispered, "Is this mana?" Adrian calmly explained, "What you just did was the method of forging a mana heart. From now on, practice it yourself whenever you have time." After saying this, he collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. "Your Highness." Adelia panicked and called out, "Are you all right?" Adrian had buckled but remained fairly lucid. He hadn't expected to end up like this from creating a tiny mana heart. He struggled to sit up and shook his head to reassure her. "I'm just a little tired." Her gaze fixed on his retreating back as she asked, "Why would you go this far for someone as lowly as me?" Without letting Adelia continue, he casually drove her out. "It's fine, leave." He waited, but Adelia still wouldn't go. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Unexpectedly, she bowed deeply and said firmly in a loud voice, "I will serve you faithfully for the rest of my life." He was very pleased to hear this. "Just don't forget that I am your master." Her eyes sparkled and her hands clasped tightly as she replied, "Yes, yes, your Highness." After saying this, Adrian turned and left, a cold thought crossing his mind. "I'm afraid you'll forget." His face darkened as he emphasized one word, "Really." Time passed. A few days later, Carl came to see Adrian with no small caution. "Your Highness, regarding Bernardo Eli. I've heard he's being held by the Royal Guard as a witness to the recent unrest, and it seems no one is allowed to see him until the trial begins." This made Adrian curious, and he asked, "A trial?" Adrian Leon Burke's face showed obvious boredom. "Don't tell me I have to attend that trial too." Carl replied, "The royals don't need to stand trial, your Highness." A smile immediately blossomed on Adrian's face. Good news. He was already bored, but as for the trial, they're really making a mountain out of a molehill. Seeing Adelia across the way, Adrian had something to ask. "Adelia, how are you doing?" She flinched and paused for a second. "What do you mean, your Highness?" He propped his chin and raised an eyebrow, questioning, "Your mana heart, has it stabilized?" Adelia Byrne understood and replied, "Yes, your Highness." As if receiving a signal, Adrian sat up and said, "Good. From today, you will train with me. Go change and meet me at the training grounds. Seeing her hesitate, he rasped a reminder. And throw away that rag, you're a knight now. A little while later, Adrian was warming up at the training ground. At that moment, a familiar voice rang out. What do you think you're doing? Balorhard's face loomed into view, irritating him. Can't you see I'm warming up? He snapped, cutting him off, not you. Vale's gaze shifted to where Adelia was sprinting. I mean that girl over there. Understanding, Adrian acted calmer. Haven't you heard the rumors? I'm training her to be a knight. This only enraged Vale more. Is the title of knight so trivial to you? Given the current situation, how can you do as you please? He fumed, which only stirred Adrian's temper. Since when did you become so meddlesome? If you hate it so much, why do you keep coming here? At that moment, Adelia ran up from afar, Your Highness. She dropped to her knees, panting. 10 laps completed. When Vale saw Adelia look over, he turned away in an instant. She looked briefly worried. Your Highness, I'm sorry, it's my fault. Adrian waved it aside and said, Forget it, take this. Today I'll teach you the basic stances only. Before she could say anything, he listed a series of sword moves before Adelia Bayern. First, assume the guard stance, and swing the sword like this. After the demonstration, Adrian ordered, Try it. She struggled to hold the wooden sword in her hands. Like this, Your Highness. Suddenly Adelia's eyes flew wide. A hint of sharpness flashed through. The cut she made was quite skillful, and her footwork was graceful. This left a strong impression on Vale Balorhard. Even Adrian was stunned. Could she copy that precisely after just one look? After saying that, Adelia timidly asked, Is my stance correct? And he felt a twinge of unease. Wait a moment. If I let my guard down, she'll surpass me in the blink of an eye. The slave-thinking trait means submitting to the strong, not respecting the weak. I already felt uneasy recalling how that damned prince abused her before. At the thought, a worst-case scenario flashed before Adrian. What if she overtakes me now? He glanced darkly toward Vale. He showed obvious delight. He hadn't expected her to possess such talent. Adrian couldn't help but nudge Vale. What do you think you're doing? Adrian, sour with jealousy, warned, Don't you dare covet her. At this, Vale's mouth twitched. What could you possibly offer that child? You're just a novice who's only been wielding a sword for a few months. He manifested mana and emphasized, You can't control her. The words struck Adrian like a thorn. He bit his lip, thinking if it were that bastard, he would have trembled and backed down at once. But I'm not him. Adrian Leon Burke's eyes flared as he replied. If I cannot control her. His demonic heart flared within his chest. He declared resolutely that no one could. Simply for one reason, because I have drunk the blood of the giant king, of the mad dragon, and countless other beings. Adrian's true nature is Gruhorn. His eyes shifted. The system confirmed. A portion of a soul exists according to the user's will. The mana around him changed. Even Vale could feel the imposing pressure radiating out. Adrian faced him and emphasized each word. She is undeniably mine. Standing before Vale, Adrian reiterated. She is mine. Do not look at her and do not covet her. I truly hate when someone takes what belongs to me. He scowled but said nothing. Unexpectedly, his eyes glowed red with anger. Adrian Leon Burke exhaled deeply. A strange feeling arose within him. His sense of reality was fading. He could no longer sense vitality or life. Only a sensation of cold and darkness filled him. Was this an omen? Adrian was filled with dread. At this rate, his weak body would be consumed by Gruhorn's soul, just as his will began to wane. Something snapped him awake. He directly faced Gruhorn. Enough. Once and for all, Adrian would tame his primal instincts. Vale's foot slammed forcefully to the ground. He spoke in a deep, admonishing tone. An ordinary knight can save the lives of 10 soldiers. An excellent knight can save the lives of 100 soldiers. Vale Balorhard looked toward an unsuspecting Adelia. That child could save 1,000 or even many more soldiers. Heard this, Adrian stroked his chin. Is that faith? For the greater good, for the northern border commander. However, Adrian put on a casual air and said, I don't care. Vale's hopes scattered to smoke. Even if she could save countless people. Suddenly Adelia Bayan softly called, Count Balorhard. She firmly patted her chest and declared, My body and heart already belong to your highness. I cannot follow your wishes, Count. These words momentarily left Vale speechless. Adrian stood aside, smug inwardly. It was worth dragging my soul out. Slave thinking forces obedience to higher-ranked beings, so I played along. That's what she said. And as for you, uncle, don't you have nothing left to teach me? The original goal was only to help me lose weight. If you want to keep coming to my palace, then from now on don't interfere in my affairs. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and concede. Understood. Even after that day, the uncle continued to come to the palace without missing a day to oversee Adelia. Though he could do nothing because he was forbidden to nag or intervene, Adrian gained a small delight from watching his arrogant uncle fume. It was rather entertaining. Suddenly, Adelia's wooden sword gave off a faint breath of mana. Even she couldn't believe it. Vale frowned at the sensation that had just washed over him. It was, he realized in amazement, that she had learned sword resonance. Adrian slapped his dark palm to get Adelia's attention. Good, well done. Though inwardly he worried she might overtake him so quickly. Adelia cheerfully walked over. Unexpectedly, Vale was trembling. He stepped in front of Adrian and demanded, Did you teach the girl to use her mana heart? Adrian's answer only infuriated Vale Balorhard more. Yes, is there a problem? To that point he couldn't hold back and shouted, Isn't it enough that you alone learned that cheap little trick? Adrian's face hardened, a warning flare appearing in his eyes. He showed no mercy and threw a line at Vale. Get out. However, Vale insisted on adding more. There was a far better path, a potential you couldn't even imagine, and you ruined it all. Adrian walked straight on without looking back. Carl, see them out. Carl, slightly flustered, replied, Your Highness. Before Adrian could say more, Vale left on his own. No need, I'll go on foot. Adelia stood between them, watching the two argue over her. She softly asked, Your Highness, is what I learned just that cheap little trick? He, displeased, cut in sharply. No, absolutely not. Adelia, wide-eyed and innocent, continued. Then why did the Count say that? Adrian casually replied in one short sentence. Because he doesn't know. People of this era have completely forgotten what a true mana heart is like. If they hadn't forgotten, they wouldn't discard it like an old pair of shoes, he said as he let Vale fade into the distance. She'll soon learn the true power of a mana heart. A few days later, at the training yard, the wooden sword was driven hard into the ground. Adrian folded his arms and glanced at it without a word. Then he looked up and taunted Vale Balorhard. You act like you'll never return. He threw out 3 words, prove it. I will use only 1 mana chain. If you can push me back even half a step, I'll acknowledge you. Adrian Leon Burke didn't hesitate to grip the hilt of the wooden sword. What was that wager back then? He bragged loudly, making a wish. Vale coldly shot a fond glare. If you win, I'll grant you one thing, anything. If you ask me to teach you the clan's secret techniques, I'll do it. Adrian curled a provocative smirk. That's not what I want. He indulged fine for now. Adrian lunged, aiming first for his neck. Fight. Before that strike, Vale only remarked lightly, aiming at the neck from the start. The blade's path was as venomous as ever. Another cut followed. Vale leaned back to evade. He tasted bitterness, clenching his lips to endure. After that, Vale neatly avoided a barrage of strikes. Bored, he decided to introduce a variable, a one-handed slash. Adrian had to use 6 or 7 parts of his strength to block it. Riding the momentum, Vale taunted, Is that all you've got? Adrian, humiliated, felt his pride flare. But the first priority was to create distance from him. Seeing this, Vale inadvertently relaxed his guard. Have you given up? Adrian stood, gripping the hilt again. Not a chance. He really was someone who always had the upper hand. Annoying, but credit where it's due. The uncle is very strong. A man like that was waiting for him to draw out his mana so he could taste a crushing defeat once more. With a mana heart at that level, I would surely lose as he predicted. Thinking that, he decided to switch to verbal sparring. Wasn't that odd? Vale's face creased in confusion. Then came Adrian Leon Burke's explanation. 400 years ago, countless knights used mana hearts and achieved unimaginable feats. Yet because a slightly more practical technique appeared, all the skills of those great knights were now treated as trash. It seemed everyone thought that the technique called mana chain was a much more powerful method of controlling mana than a mana heart. As soon as he finished, Vale bluntly asked, What exactly are you trying to say? Adrian replied, half explanatory, half declarative. My thinking is different. It's not that mana hearts are weak, but that their wielders are weak. Not all mana hearts are the same. Saying this, the depths of Adrian Leon Burke's eyes revealed his usual confidence. Uncle, have you ever heard of the Battle Soul Song? To Vale Balorhard, however, it was just ear-splitting babble. This is a place to duel with swords, not to debate such flowery nonsense. The corner of his mouth curved slightly. I thought you'd say that. Uncle, since you call the mana heart a crude technique, only lowly mercenaries would learn it. He didn't bother to hide his impatience. You talk too much. Need more time to catch your breath? Adrian paused a beat, then waved it off. No need. Adrian's steps grew noticeably lighter. The path a knight walks becomes a list of deeds. 100 victories are my pride and my strength. The energy Adrian emitted was strange enough that even Vale took heed. What system confirms change? I sing the song of 100 victories before 20 trainees dreaming of knighthood. Victories carved into the heart, and victories carved become the Battle Soul Song. The Battle Soul Song was formed, reciting within the knight's holy sword. Then something unprecedented occurred. Battle Soul Song, common rank, the combat melody was created. A small, ordinary deed I accomplished over the past Hafir activated the combat melodies effect. This is the true power of a mana heart. The battle soul song. System display notification. The combat melody effect has been activated. Facing Adrian, Vale remained firm in his thinking. Whatever you do, it's the same outcome. He frowned, rejecting all of Adrian's notions. As long as you possess a mana heart, you cannot defeat the mana chain. Unexpectedly, Adrian Leon Burke paid him no mind and charged forward with his sword. As Adrian closed in, Vale showed a hint of surprise. Suddenly, Adrian's heart clenched in waves. Indeed, the mana of the ring circles has the property of causing mana backflow through a mana heart. He ground his teeth and bore it with a sullen face. Nearly defeated, Vale curled his lip in quiet triumph. He continued to try to shatter Adrian's resolve with words. "You're stubborn in endurance." Despite the disadvantage, he still smiled. "However, to obtain this melody, I trained over 100 times, and endured the ring circle's mana over 1,000 times, a power forged to counter knights who use mana chains. In 100 clashes, I endured 1,000 waves. Mana streamed from Adrian, wrapping his body, his heart curled within blazing magic. This is the power of the combat melody. The wooden sword's tip sharpened noticeably. Vale faced him, thinking to himself that now it seemed worth trying. Adrian's speed surged in the blink of an eye. The two swords met with overwhelming force. Vale held his ground. Only Adrian moved with full commitment. The longer they fought, the more Adrian's stamina was pushed beyond limits. Only then did he begin to feel somewhat exhausted. He hadn't expected him to hold out so long. Suddenly, something brushed the sword's hilt. Vale decided to strike, chopping down in a single blow. Adrian was pushed back several meters. His face was smeared with the grime of battle. He spoke sternly, asking how it looked. Before he finished, he was cut off by you. "I told you so. Not all mana hearts are the same." Vale's magic ring glowed. "You're arrogantly presumptuous." He subconsciously shifted his foot from its original position. Then he concentrated his force into a basic strike. Adrian's body couldn't withstand it and was sent flying. Time had dragged on too long. Vale Balorhard's endurance had limits. "I'm not playing anymore. Surviving this long is praise enough." "I'll commend you." He didn't bother to care, only struggling to crawl up, thinking that, indeed, a common battle soul song wasn't enough. Yet he didn't stop there. Adrian continued his tale. 400 years ago, the knights made a grave mistake. They left no enemies for future generations. At first, surely everything had been passed down intact. The sword techniques, the proper methods of forging the heart, and even those radiant battle soul songs. But time gnawed at those glorious deeds, and ultimately caused them to be forgotten. Tales of never-seen dragons and unheard-of giant kings. They must have become wild legends. Of course, new battle soul songs were created, but at best they only defeated 10 knights. At best only the feat of defeating 100 soldiers. At best only melodies forged against humans, with levels that could not become myths or heroes. They could not withstand the new winds. Adrian's eyes were unmoved. Mana chains, with those cheap techniques, you cannot reach the transcendent. After hearing this, Vale Balorhard challenged. "Are you drunk in broad daylight? I haven't understood a word you've said so far." In his eyes, he was just an antiquated man. Vale Balorhard, the proud and foolish knight. Adrian continued his speech. "You people need to know how great a thing you have lost." Amid the madness of mana, he monologued inwardly. "If you do not know," mana seemed to form an arm to envelop Adrian Leon Burke's hand. "I will teach you something that no ordinary sword can cut. To peel dragon scales and drink its hot blood." This time the system displayed a new notification. "I sing aloud the true dragon extermination song." Suddenly Adrian's heart jolted in pain. His current power couldn't sustain the melody's level. Parts of the song were trimmed, parts trimmed, parts trimmed, parts trimmed, parts trimmed, parts trimmed. Finally, after pruning, the system confirmed once more. "Only one line of the song will be sung, 1/4 of a quarter." His eyes flared red with the technique within his sword. Dragon slaughter, lion cut, sword thrusts, and barrages. The blade, honed on Vale's mana, showed signs of being severed. This was. His pupils contracted to the limit. "At this rate, I'll be swallowed." Finally, the energy reached its peak. A radiant beam lit up the clear sky. The explosion blew out, wrecking the entire arena floor. Adrian was flung away amid a strangled cry. "Your Highness." As the smoke slowly cleared, Vale's silhouette still stood tall. He forced himself up, irritated, crawling to his feet. 4 magic rings of Vale met his eyes. He couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you say you'd only use 1 ring?" Vale Balorhard's face darkened. Seeing this, he thought inwardly that even after using all 4 rings he had, he still couldn't prevent his sword from being severed. On the other side, Adrian had already sat upright. Mana from the heart is weaker than mana from the ring circles. That was an undeniable truth. Then, he spoke first, declaring coldly, "Count Vale Balorhard." Those 3 words made Vale recoil in shock. "You have lost." At the climax, Suddenly dozens of things began to disturb Adrian's heart. They coiled tightly around the Gruhorn sword soul within him. No, stop. Please stop right now. Adrian Leon Burke's face visibly went pale. Unconsciously, he clutched his chest and collapsed. Back in the present, pain still tormented Adrian in his bed. His hand trembled as he gripped the bedsheet. Sweat drenched Adrian's face. This damned battle soul song, the price of forcibly extracting a song's power, to peel away dragon scales. For the true dragon extermination song is a battle soul song of mythic tier. After calming down, Adrian clenched his fist proudly. My body has been ravaged by it, but it's truly worth the cost. The first battle soul song I wove with my own hands. 100 battles, 100 victories is my pride and my strength. Through hundreds of duels I've endured thousands of tempests, and I will stand firm before even greater waves. He smiled faintly in satisfaction. The level of the combat melody had risen a bit. Thinking of one thing made Adrian excited. This is enough to fight that bastard third prince. Suddenly Adelia's voice called, "Your Highness." She looked at him like a fan seeing an idol. You're finally awake. Everything went into chaos when Your Highness fainted. I've never seen the Empress so angry before. He chuckled to himself. Deservedly so, they deserved it. Adelia Bayern gently cut his joy short, and Count Balorhard left a message, instructing them to inform him the moment Your Highness regained consciousness. Adrian lazily stretched out on the bed. Don't report yet, I'll rest a little longer. Then he gave her the silent treatment, for Adrian was preoccupied with the spirit within his body. If I don't properly recover my mind after harm from abusing the battle soul song, I will pay a terrible price. Reality and past memories will blend together into a mess, and at some point the boundary of reality will completely collapse, finally becoming a madman. I will endlessly replay moments of the song's spirit inside a shattered world. Thinking of that end made his face contort. Imagining being trapped again in the sword's memories after barely becoming human was enough to make me shudder. According to the memories of Adrian's blade spirit, Agnes Bayern, she was a great female swordswoman. After explaining to Adelia, he emphasized that since she was a descendant of the Bayern line, she should be able to inherit the battle soul song the woman left behind. She was somewhat surprised to hear this. She hadn't expected her ancestor to be such a great female swordswoman. He wasn't surprised, shrugging as he poured water. Of course, she would need to grow far beyond her current state to possess a level befitting that song, so about that. Adrian half probed, half hinted. What do you want to do when you learn swordsmanship? Adelia seemed never to have considered it. That is, she avoided his gaze. If I could truly become a knight. Adrian was at a loss from her embarrassment. If you become a knight. He didn't want to trouble Adelia Bayern any further. If you can't think of it now, say it later, but she still tried to voice her feelings. I will. He paused, waiting for Adelia's next words. She summoned all her courage and declared, Your Highness, I will become Your Highness's sword. This time Adrian was the one surprised. Memories from his days as a sword flooded back. There were songs of deeds beginning with the blast of war horns, and there were victory songs that began with the first step across the field. There were also stories that began with vows etched into the soul. The oath was raised by Adelia. I will live for Your Highness my whole life. I will dedicate everything to Your Highness. Suddenly the system issued a hidden notification. Adelia Bayern offers the song of submission. His mana heart suddenly lit up. Is this Adelia's battle soul song? And sometimes a battle soul song can affect others as well. A golden light shone directly onto Adelia. A new battle soul song was born. A field-grade battle soul song, a Dominion melody, had been created. From what he knew, the song of submission is offered to a master. Rather than a typical battle soul song, it's more like a vow of servitude that binds souls together, even if she has the mindset of a servant. Looking at Adelia before him, Adrian thought to himself that he hadn't expected the sword mare's descendant to weave a song of submission. I have felt an unexpected aid. Considering his current capabilities, Adrian smiled with satisfaction. As long as I remain the target of the song of submission, Adelia's growth will also bring benefits to me. Adrian smiled at her. Thank you. For a moment, Adelia's face flushed uncontrollably. Your Highness. In the dim room, their eyes briefly met. Although I still don't know in which direction that benefit will go. Time passed. It was now a few days later. Adrian's face looked plainly dazed. Carl and Adelia stood before him, speechless and puzzled. Just then a voice called from outside. Adrian, are you feeling any better? He stammered in reply, I'm fine. Adrian cautiously glanced at Empress Leon Burke at the door. Dealing with those who hate this body is easier, but with those who cherish the original owner of this body, it's rather awkward. Suddenly she asked, Are you resentful toward your foster father? Before he could answer, Empress Leon Burke spoke in a low tone to explain. Your foster father never intended to harm you, so even if any bad feelings remain, please cast them off. He replied calmly, I have no negative feelings at all. Unexpectedly, Empress Leon Burke grew more agitated. How could you not? He treated you harshly and nagged you constantly. Saying you have no negative feelings is certainly a lie. Adrian helplessly protested, no, I truly don't. He wearily scratched his face, waiting for her reaction. Recalling that day, he told himself, that day I landed a blow on him because all his pride and principles were denied. He must have had a hard time enduring it. The seed I planted in his heart then, the shadow of doubt, if he has the strength, he'll go further. But if he can't overcome it, he'll lose that precious martial courage. Honestly, I don't care what happens after. Empress Leon Burke smiled, recounting nostalgically. Your foster father devoted his life more to the sword than to people, so he's somewhat awkward and blunt. However, lately he seems very proud of you. He even personally persuaded His Majesty. The next remark stirred Adrian's unintended thoughts further. Thanks to him, your confinement order was lifted earlier than expected. But trouble came the moment the confinement was lifted. When Adrian defiantly declared, arrest them all, she let out a soft sigh. Your foster father's position must have been awkward. Remembering that, he stared blankly for a moment. So that's why he appeared displeased. Adrian stroked his chin, thinking for a moment, but a big question popped into his head. Why would that man do that for me? After the day Empress Leon Burke visited, another old man appeared, Scholar Niccolo Marchiatel. He smiled like a salesman, Your Highness. Adrian's skin chilled as he flatly cut him off. I absolutely refuse. Carl and Adelia silently stood aside watching. Unexpectedly, he played his old trick, flopping on the ground and wailing. Why should I have to study? Niccolo straightened and said, if you don't learn, what difference is there between humans and beasts? He leapt up angrily. Are you calling me a beast? Niccolo patiently counseled. You've only just begun your studies, Your Highness, so I can't call you a beast yet. Adrian shouted back. I haven't even started. Don't play word games with me. Then he plopped down on the floor in a huff. I may look like this, but I already know everything I need to know. I'm saying I don't need to learn anything more, understood? Niccolo Marchiatel continued his sales pitch. If you are that resolute, then let's do this. You will discuss several topics with me. If your skills are truly as you claim, then I won't need to seek you out anymore, Your Highness. The opportunity came in an instant. He agreed immediately like a lamb. All right, I accept. The discussion took place, accompanied by Adrian slamming the table. Yes, exactly. That's why one must always watch one's back. Human nature is to climb over others if you appear too lenient. Niccolo fed off Adrian's emotion and said, you are completely right. Seizing the moment, he produced a book and said, you'll find this book very interesting. He took it and flipped through a few pages. Here it discusses the relationship between monarch and vassal as a kind of contract or transaction. The monarch receives military and economic support in exchange for protecting vassals, while vassals seek royal protection and political stability in exchange for their loyalty. This seemed to resonate with Adrian. The old man was right. Every relationship is essentially reciprocal. So the conversation continued until late afternoon. And thus, on this point exactly, yes, and here as well. When finished, Niccolo gathered up his books and papers. So then, Your Highness, he smiled brightly and promised, we'll continue the remaining discussion tomorrow. He hadn't realized he'd been led by the nose and even waved goodbye. Very well, I'll wait. Even after Niccolo left, Adrian remained in fairly good spirits. Suddenly his clarity returned in an instant. Wait, did I just take part in a regular lesson? The corner of Adrian's mouth twitched a few times from being fooled like an ox. That old man was truly sly, yet he also had some thoughts about him. The crown prince. He was quite different from the rumors. The next day, when the sun was high, Adrian lay on his back in bed with a gluttonous-looking face. He rolled around complaining a few times. I'm bored. Inside, he felt an indescribable restless stirring. Have I been living too diligently lately? Without focused training, there's nothing to do, and my body is still recovering. Suddenly, a report came at the door. Your Highness, Sir Vale Balorhart has come to see you. He shot up excitedly. It's been ages since we had a visitor. Adelia tilted her head and asked, what should we do? Adrian, bored, nevertheless perked up. Fine, show him in. He stood with his hands on his hips, waiting for his foster father. It had been a few days since that match, so it was about time he came to visit. His demeanor changed when he came face to face with Vale, however. It seemed he still hadn't overcome the shadow I planted in him at all. He sighed deeply, then spoke sincerely. I am very sorry. I broke my own promise and caused you grave injury because of it. I have no excuse. Adrian recalled the previous battle with a gnawing conscience. The reason I had to recuperate wasn't because of your sword aura, foster father. but because I overused the battle soul song True Dragon's Demise. He felt even more guilty remembering Empress Leon Burke's words, that your situation must also be difficult, given that you caused another problem because of me. Vale said in a low voice, so then tell me what you want. If you want my arm, I'll give it. If you want my eye, I'll give it too. He exhaled coldly. What would you do with such worthless things? Adrian found himself in an awkward dilemma. Could a man who should have been a sword saint in the past be bound by such a shadow? After thinking for 5 seconds, he made a decision. Fine, I will be magnanimous. I will state my wish first. Let my foster father take me out on a trip. He was slightly startled. Since the confinement order has ended, can't you go out whenever you like? Adrian wagged a finger to imply. No, not a day trip. Go somewhere far, if possible, leave the capital entirely. This request left him frozen like a statue. After a moment he managed to say it will take some time to arrange the schedule. With the upcoming banquet, going too far isn't possible. Adrian waved it off carelessly. That's fine. As soon as he finished he turned and said, very well, I'll contact you when the schedule is set. Adrian agreed and sent him off. Do that. Carl beside him watched Vale leave with him. Seeing he seemed troubled, Adrian asked directly, what's wrong? What is it? Why are you looking at me like that? Carl hemmed and hawed, not answering right away. Well, He scratched his face and forced a smile. I'm just a bit surprised, Your Highness. I thought you would demand something far more unreasonable, because the Count broke his promise, and this was a rare chance to profit in many ways. But caught red-handed, he couldn't say more, just that. All he could say was, seeing that stubborn old man act like that makes me feel sorry for him. Before the goosebumps faded, he heard Carl's gleeful chuckle. What are you laughing at? Carl, you've been awfully relaxed lately. Just then Adelia appeared. Your Highness. She held a small sheet of paper. The awaited letter has arrived, Your Highness. It bore a seal from somewhere. The letter was brief but complete. Recently I have achieved a small success. Perhaps I will visit you soon. Hope you remain well until then. Sent by Arwen Kurgian. Reading the last lines, Adrian smiled faintly. Perfectly timed news. About 5 days later, his foster father sent good news. And 2 days after that the departure day arrived. The caravan of carriages left the city gate. Adrian acted like a 5-year-old, leaning out the window. Foster father, what's the name of the territory we're visiting? Ellen. Vale Balorhard frowned and warned. You can't sit still, can you? But seeing his excitement, he relented. I'll explain, so go inside. The story goes back to ancient times, the county of Ellen. It is the royal weapons forge. There are iron mines in the territory that supply high-quality ore, and a guild of skilled smiths to refine it. It's no exaggeration to say over half the weapons supplied to the crown come from Ellen. Adrian Leon Burke's eyes lit up. Perfect. He gleefully imagined new possibilities. My strength has improved a lot, so it's time to find a sword of my own. At first I planned to grab any decent spare sword from the royal armory, but Carl then said, Excuse me, Your Highness, because this is a royal decree we cannot issue any weapon to you, by the Emperor Leon Burke's powerful edict. Know that you will be severely punished if that brat touches a sword again. Adrian flinched, recalling how the body's owner had been pierced by a grewhorn in mischief. The more he thought, the more helpless he felt. Given that brute's poor record, it's understandable. But anyway, that means if I want a proper weapon, I'll have to get it outside the palace. Suddenly, Adrian paused and glanced covertly at Vale. A fleeting thought crossed his mind. He's surprisingly considerate compared to his appearance. Vale admonished, too noisy, close the window. He yelled in displeasure. What? Never. And so the 20-day journey began. Forced to sit still in the carriage, Adrian decided to stabilize the mana in his body. But it's time I refill it too. The carriage is rocking, a chilly breeze passing by, the sound of knights echoing from outside, gathering the tiny mana points hidden in the space. If I fill this empty mana heart, slowly the mana pulses contracted into his heart. Suddenly Adrian Leon Burke sensed a small conflict. He was surprised even in his subconscious. Since when did my mana heart become this large? The system displayed a new notification. You have attempted an extraordinary feat beyond your capability, and have seen a portion of that immense will. Upon reading this line, he thought to himself that this must be the effect of forcibly using the true dragon's demise. Suddenly, a light radiated from Adrian's chest. That effort reflected onto your body. Your mana heart has been expanded. Thanks to the expanded mana heart, your physique has changed significantly, and your body can now endure much more mana. Moreover, you have touched the realm of the Swordmaster. Your connection to the source has slightly improved. Some restored limitations on your powers have been lifted. The heaven-seeking eye ability has improved considerably. The wind-dating ear ability has also improved significantly. From Adelia's perspective, she only saw him behaving oddly, Your Highness. Unaware, he didn't care and kept gesturing about. After testing his martial skill, Adrian clenched his fists excitedly. I've advanced another step. The caravan had arrived at the first destination, the county of Ellen. As Adrian stepped down, he was greeted. I cannot express the honor of meeting you this way, Your Highness. The two men before him bowed respectfully. Edgar of House Allen greets you. Torrance, eldest son of House Ellen, greets the Crown Prince. Leading the party, he replied politely, "Thank you for the reception." Edgar smiled courteously and said, "It's been a long journey, so you must be tired. I'll take you to the rest chambers first." Adrian did not answer immediately. He was busy looking around. A few observations formed in Adrian Leon Burke's mind. They say this is a weapons production site, and as expected, the estate was full of all kinds of arms. However, they were only low-grade pieces, all show and no real battlefield value. As he walked in with Edgar, he kept glancing about. Adrian's expression grew somewhat displeased. At this rate, it seems hard to find what I need here. Unable to hold back, he asked bluntly, "You said the Smiths Guild is in this territory, right?" The man answered offhand, "Yes, that's correct," but taking advantage, Adrian directly requested, "I want to go there and take a look." After a moment, the footsteps of someone hastened. Before long, Edgar had led him somewhere. The nature of smiths is that they are coarse and stubborn. When work reaches a peak, they often ignore even their lord's visit, and their words are as cold and rough as the iron they handle. So even if you feel offended, please consider it the spirit of the artisan and forgive generously. It seemed Adrian Leon Burke heard none of it. All that struck his eyes were the flames and ringing hammers. Entering inside, Edgar played host and introduced. "The heat from the forge is intense. If you feel uncomfortable, please say so, Your Highness." Adrian was still overwhelmed. The sound of hammers striking iron echoed through the air. Seeing he intended to do something, the man was somewhat puzzled. "Your Highness." Stepping into the forge, Adrian seemed to merge with it. Flames cheering, bellows whooshing, and the smiths were swinging their hammers onto the blocks of iron. The heat caused his sweat to flow more. However, among it, the thing he cared about gradually appeared before his eyes, emitting an unusually clear sound. Adrian stopped in front of a smith who was hard at work. The man was middle-aged, but his fervor and hammer strikes never ceased. What was before him contracted into the depths of his gaze. The image of Gruhorn appeared in his mind. This is it. The first memory I still clearly remember. Suddenly, someone used a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Adrian glanced and found Adelia Byron. "Your Highness, you're sweating too much." Only then did he startle and realize it. Then he brushed it off, refusing her concern. He continued watching the sinewy old man forge the sword. The master smith gathered the workers and approached Adrian. "We lowly ones salute the Crown Prince, Your Highness." Edgar added, "This man is named Zaxxon. He runs this smith's guild." Adrian paid it no mind. "I understand." However, Adrian focused only on the sinewy old man striking the blade. Thinking he was displeased, Zaxxon angrily shouted, "What are you doing? Stop at once and bow to His Highness." Unexpectedly, this angered Adrian. "You're too noisy." Discomfort showed plainly in his eyes. The group of smiths fell silent, not daring to speak. The blazing red sword gave off a whiff of smoke. He turned his head and scanned around. Clearly, they had been forced away from their work to come here. Then Adrian warned, "Doing things I didn't even order. The iron will cool unless you want the forge's fire to die out. So keep standing there if you prefer." No sooner said than the smith surged out. "What are you doing? Grab your tools, stomp the bellows quick." They left, leaving Adrian standing and observing. The space around him seemed to halt. The man before him did not stop his work. The old man's hammer rhythm was steady, never missing a beat. Adrian had no intention of interrupting. He merely observed every move. In the depth of his eyes was imprinted the light from the sword. It felt as if everything around him was fire and surrounded by flames. The blade itself suddenly shone brightly. His gaze narrowed solely on the man. Sweat flowed more and his breathing quickened. Adrian wondered, what exactly is this feeling? The tour of the forge ended. Edgar saw Adrian out. For some reason, the man had repeatedly forged swords and then melted them down over the past 6 months. He was a little curious and asked if they were defective products. Edgar shook his head sadly. "It's hard to say." The story was slowly told by Edgar. Every sword he made was considered a masterpiece, so he was called a master swordmaker. Even the swords he made before were, to me, utterly perfect. It's truly a mystery why he melted them all down. The more he spoke, the more puzzlement and regret showed. Moreover, for the past month he had hardly slept and had buried himself in work. Because he was no longer young, we could not help but worry. Adrian said nothing more and strode straight toward the estate. A true craftsman. Days passed since then. His Highness came to the forge early each morning and only left late at night. During that time, the old man simply continued his daily work, and His Highness quietly observed him, contrary to the tension from rumors that the Crown Prince would arrive. Surprisingly, no incident occurred. On a crescent moon night atop the estate roof, Adrian came to the forge as usual, and finally the day His Highness had to depart arrived. He seemed about to say something but stopped. The man remained as always, not regarding him with any special notice. When he felt he had reached his limit, Adrian sighed. I had hoped to see it finished before I left. Edgar was at a loss before his expectation. He thought to himself that the young man felt deep regret. Then Adrian turned and called out, "Come on. I heard there's a farewell party tonight, and we must depart early tomorrow morning." Edgar silently watched his retreating back. Perhaps that was why he hoped His Highness could see the sword completed by the master swordsmith, even if only for a moment. The next morning, when the sun had just climbed high, Adrian appeared with an odd, eager look. From afar, Edgar hurried over to announce that it seemed the master swordsmith had finished the blade. On hearing this, Adrian was the next to rush over. Before his eyes stood the sinewy old man holding the sword. He was carefully polishing the entire blade. At last it was finished, glittering under the sun. Unexpectedly, the man said nothing, and knelt at Adrian's feet to present the sword. The blade reflected his eyes. "I offer this sword." He spoke each word slowly and clearly. "To your highness." Even Edgar had never expected this, forging it like the sun rising on the horizon, and quenching it until its hue matched the king's dragon robe. If done so, a sword like the sun and a king would be born, sang the smith's verse. Holding the sword, Adrian asked, "Does it have a name?" He bowed deeply in reverence. "How about calling it Dusk?" Adrian pressed, curious. "Is that the dawn's dusk or the evening dusk?" The sinewy man answered slowly, "To me it's evening dusk, but to your highness it must be dawn." Hearing this, Adrian laughed aloud. "You have a way with words for a smith." Suddenly the man's tone fell and he exhaled a long breath. As he spoke, he collapsed to the ground, feeling relieved. Before anyone knew it, the man had fainted. Carl murmured in his ear, "Your Highness, please support him and inform my uncle. I think I'll stay here tonight." That night the camp torches were lit. Adrian sat alone, inside, tending to the man. The man seemed somewhat recovered. The moment His Highness stood behind me that day, the sword had taken shape as if destined. The sword itself chose the day it would be born. He folded his arms, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Is that what you meant?" Adrian's face darkened as if he wanted to say something. "The truth is." Then he bent down and whispered into the man's ear. The old man startled at the words. 3 seconds later, he suddenly shouted, "My God, then you are—" Adrian understood and quickly nodded in confirmation. Yes, so how could I not understand this man's heart? Once everything was understood, the man lying on the bed burst into laughter. He spoke with satisfaction. "I understand now, I really do. Your Highness, please lend me that sword for a moment." He quickly handed the hilt to the man. "Here it is, sir." The old man's trembling hand took the sword back. Sweat drenched his face as he prayed over the blade, that it would become as great as your highness himself. Hearing this, his heart skipped a beat. Adrian seized the man's hand, gripping it tightly, of course. And then what must happen happened. It seemed the man had reached his final stretch. He had sacrificed himself to create the greatest sword. That night, Adrian seemed to make a vow to himself. Certainly. The next day, another sword was packed into a box. Edgar happily brought it to present to Adrian. While you cannot truly measure the worth of a sword made with one's soul, I believe it would be impractical for your highness to use. I happen to have this magic sword I wish to offer. Please accept this instead." Adrian accepted with a benevolent smile. "It's very good." He privately calculated that although not top tier, it was a solid mid-grade sword. Seeing his delight, Edgar was pleased and asked, "Your highness, what about that other sword?" Adrian casually slung the sword at his hip and replied, "Having a renowned master pour his whole heart into making it is already an immense gift. Yet you intended to also present a magic sword. Indeed, the Ellen family's loyalty to the crown is wholehearted." Edgar was stunned at being led off like that. Resigned, he bowed and said, "It is an honor for the family." Edgar tore at his hair and shouted that he had planned to use that flashy magic sword as bait to retrieve the master sword. But now, he'd lost a good sword for nothing. A short while later, in a certain forest, Vale announced to the troops, "Wagons and infantry will follow slowly. Cavalry will advance at top speed. We're behind schedule, so hurry up and catch up." "Aye, sir," they responded in unison. Adrian hesitated, watching him go. He blurted out, "You seem busy, uncle." "Thinking back, I didn't see you around at all while we were in the domain," Vale replied. "Your Majesty entrusted me with a separate mission." He stroked his chin, adopting a pensive air. "I suppose my journey isn't entirely without obligations either." Vale didn't answer, only reminded, "All right, prepare quickly. We plan to move fast to reach Iron Lion by tonight, so we'll be riding horses." Hearing this, Adrian suddenly remembered. About that, I don't know how to ride a horse." He was left momentarily stunned, his gaze fixed on Adrian, I used to be a sword. How would I know how to ride a horse? Adrian had to grit his teeth and comply, as there was no other choice. The road to Iron Lion. And of course there were a few unexpected incidents along the way, but his face grew somewhat pale, though not half a day as originally planned. We still reached our destination after about a day's travel. Standing before the city gates, he exhaled. So this is Iron Lion. The marching of the soldiers came to an exact halt. The young man at the front kept a respectful demeanor. York of the Wallowden family, I pay respects to the Grand Prince. The Iron Lions salute the noble blood of Leon Burke. Their reception sent a chill through him. Your display of pomp is a bit excessive. Adrian's eyes flicked over the accompanying soldiers. As for the reason, well, it's obvious, isn't it? A fiery idea occurred to him. Shall I stir things up a bit? From afar, someone stepped forward, Arwen. Arwen understood immediately. Your Highness. She knelt before Adrian and reported. I've counted the days just to see your Highness again. As soon as she finished, dozens of burning eyes turned to him. Oh, that was a quick reaction. Suddenly, Adrian Leon Burke felt a chill crawl up his spine. He hurriedly turned and met Adelia Bayern's gaze. Her hostility toward me, her master, could provoke Adelia. He quickly called softly, Adelia. She snapped back to attention in an instant. Adelia returned to her usual composure. She nodded with full respect. Yes, your Highness. Seeing that, Adrian felt somewhat relieved. Fortunately, I trained her subservience early. To avoid wasting time, Adrian turned to Arwen. Now, he casually ordered, Arwen, come with me. We don't have many. Adrian schemed to provoke. Matters to discuss would be better if those behind her came along too. Moments later, Adrian had removed his outer coat and gone to the training yard. Standing before Arwen's group of admirers, he spoke bluntly. I want to witness the swordsmanship of the Iron Lions, the one said to be the kingdom's best. Who will show me the Iron Lion's blade? All eyes focused on one person, so he followed their gaze with his own. Seeing their silence, Adrian declared boldly, if my rank intimidates you, I, in the name of Leon Burke, guarantee that no one will be held accountable for the outcome of this contest. Still no one. Knowing it usually wouldn't do, he taunted them. Who knew the famed Iron Lions were such cowards? It seems the title of the kingdom's strongest is mere vanity. At these words, the orange-haired youth stepped forward with a sword. I am Dale of the Dennant family, he insisted, though I have many shortcomings to represent the Iron Lion's sword, if you permit. I request the honor to stand before your Highness. He waved his hand, a smile tugging at his lips. No need to ask permission. I was the one who made the request first. No sooner had he finished speaking than Dale strode forward. Well then, please be careful. He glared, sharpness plain on his face. The two swords met, sending out a burst of blue light. Dale coughed up blood at the first contact. With a single move, he was flung away, sliding a long way across the ground. Adrian's mana heart blazed. Next, Dale was knocked out, and the others retreated. Among them, another bold one stepped up. Paul Rothheim, Dale is only a first year, while I'm already in my third year. Before he could finish his sentence, his mouth was smashed. After that came a few scratching blows for Adrian. I Halley, 5-year apprentice swordsman. Judith, 8th year. The Iron Lion's blades never lose, no. Only the sharp clacks echoed across the training yard. About 15 minutes passed. The Iron Lion unit had been completely routed by Adrian. He wore a bored expression. Honestly, now I want to face those official knights. You move rather slowly. Adrian called out Arwen. She stepped forward and said, yes, your Highness. He smiled and winked. When I return, you'll come with me. Arwen froze for a beat. Then she bowed deeply. By your Highness's wish. Suddenly a gloomy man from the back spoke up. Your Highness? He curled his lip with satisfaction. Too easy. The man continued. I heard your Highness enjoys wagers. Shall we have a small bet to liven the mood? If I defeat you, Adrian cut him off before he finished. Decline. Arwen is not a prize for a contest. She was moved by that, your Highness. Adrian dropped his wooden sword to the ground and offered another proposition. Let's bet something else instead. Carl, bring the sword here. He grabbed the sword and said, if you win, I'll give you this sword right here. Arwen was quite surprised by his generosity. The man was equally startled. She deliberately ran over to trip Adrian Leon Burke. Your Highness, I should have been the one. He interrupted Arwen at will. She is worth 100, 1,000 times more than this sword. The reason being he always believed that the worth of a swordsman could not be compared to an ordinary sword. The excited man nodded. Very well, your Highness. He drew his sword and announced his name. Dunham of the Fahrenheit clan. I am an official knight of the Lion Smith's order, and I am on the verge of reaching 2nd tier. He casually gave a token like, so you mean you're still only 1st tier? He was furious but speechless. Putting that aside, Dunham raised the sword's pommel in his hand. This sword is the 17th work made by the artisan known as the Master Sword Forger. If you win, this sword will belong to your highness." He laughed when he heard the familiar name. What a coincidence. Adrian quickly drew the sword the brawny old man had given him, then revealed a classic truth. "I happen to have a sword received from that master as well." He emphasized every word. "It is his 100th work." Dunham hesitated then. "I have never heard rumors of that master making a 100th sword." With that line, Adrian taunted harder. "I guess not. It's his final piece, just finished a few days ago." He was then somewhat angered. "Very well. Although your highness walks a misguided path with his sword, I can perceive the relentless effort poured into that path." The syrupy praise only amused Adrian more. "A misguided path, is it? To show a little respect for that, I will give my all in this contest." The mana in his heart flared up again. How trivial. This position was never truly mine from the start. The respect directed at me is the gaze of those I have gathered. It can be summed up in one word. As long as it comes from my people, that is enough. Saying this, Adrian lowered his voice and softly called. Adelia watched closely. She was taken aback and couldn't respond in time. Yes, a kind of mana never seen before emanated from him. Adrian Leon Burke firmly stressed each word. "This path is the one you must walk from now on." Adelia obediently nodded, yes. The bond between her and Adrian was completed in an instant. Adelia said firmly, "I will certainly do so, your highness." In York's room, steam rose thickly from the teacup. Vale sat opposite him and asked, "How many times have we visited the Lion-Smith city?" York crossed his legs and replied, "This is the 4th time." He rubbed his chin and pondered something. From Vale Balorhard's impression, the 4th prince couldn't care less about the throne and surely wouldn't come. The 3rd and 5th princes dropped by while the crown prince was under house arrest. Even the 2nd prince had just stopped by not long ago. York set his teacup on the table and said, "No matter how bad the reputation, one cannot deny that the crown prince is the kingdom's legitimate heir." He angrily pointed at Vale Balorhard's face. "For things to come to this, you must bear a great deal of responsibility. If you, commander of the 3rd Legion, had supported the crown prince even a little, his highness would not have become so isolated." He bowed his head and took in the accusations. "So why only now act as his guardian?" Vale did not deny what was said. "You are not wrong. I did once abandon my nephew. Not only an inept monarch, but also a tyrant. That is my nephew." One day, when I scolded him for being plastered on some poisonous brew, Adrian angrily snapped back rudely, "Are you insane?" His face flushed with anger, unable to contain the resentment in his soul. He lunged at his great uncle with a sword. To Vale at the time, only one thought occupied his mind. A worthless bastard. When I returned north in that disappointment, my nephew sent me poisoned wine. He brazenly called it a gift and enclosed a letter. Vale angrily seized the poisoned wine flask in his hand. Without another thought, he resolved to drink it dry. When I burned that cheap toxin with mana, who knows where he obtained it? I also scorched away the last remnants of familial feeling along with it. However, the bastard I thought would never change was different now. He endured brutal training and was growing stronger by the day. Back in the present, York was still gaping with questions. "Didn't you say the crown prince must never become king?" Vale's teacup reflected Adrian's smile. The boy now is completely different from before. With that in mind, he decided to humble himself once. Give the boy a chance, at least let him start on equal footing with the other princes. Moreover, Vale bowed his head to York. "I beg you. He is nearly 70 and has never witnessed this before. I truly cannot comprehend it. I don't know whether it is you or the crown prince who has changed." "First, look up quickly." A man dubbed the treasurer began, but before he could finish, a soldier burst through the door. The Lord Wallowden. The two frowned, looking surprised. "The crown prince is." After receiving the news, York and Vale went toward the training yard. "Don't worry overly. Dunham knows his limits, so nothing serious should happen." Along the way, he kept reassuring him. Even in a real duel, he certainly wouldn't beat a royal unconscious. After hearing this, Vale spoke sternly. "The person you should worry about now is not the prince, but your knight." He found it rather unbelievable. "You really have become strange. Your face is pale, and now you say such absurd things." Before he finished speaking, a familiar figure was flung down at their feet. York looked and immediately recognized the man on the ground. Dunham. The training yard erupted into uncontrollable commotion. Even Dunham had been defeated. His Highness won again. York stood dumbfounded for a long moment. What is going on? Vale was a little awkward yet proud. "I told you so." Adrian brushed the dried blood from the corner of his mouth. In his eyes, Adrian had changed greatly. "He is not someone you need to worry about." Energized, Adrian called out loudly next. The great uncle always said that a true knight only begins when he reaches 2nd tier. That was why Adrian had fought Dunham with all his might. Throughout the fight, Adrian Leon Burke experienced that for himself. Those words were not boastful at all. He also realized one thing. The current battle chant was insufficient, but he could not casually use the true dragon extermination chant on an ordinary knight. In that case, the system confirmed, activate the super-focus talent. Adrian's mana heart pounded in his chest. He sketched out hazy steps that became clear. Everything fell silent. His body no longer felt like his own. Adrian's eyes blazed with a blue fire. That was the feeling, just like then. The moment Dunham's blade was about to meet his replayed before his eyes. They collided, sending out sparks. As a result, Dunham was thrown several meters into the chicken coops. He was exhausted, but in a different way. As another man fell, Adrian's voice rang out again. Next, the blows remained solid and reliable. A keen blade line paired with a confident half-smile. Adrian had no qualms finishing opponents in just a few swift moves. As time passed, his strength showed no sign of waning. Adrian even used the opportunity to hone himself. One by one, they were felled like stalks of grain. Adrian spared no one. He fought them all. The more he fought, the more fired up he became. Sweat drenched the grass. Adrian alone cleared the lion squadron until dusk. He panted to regain his breath. Unexpectedly, the soldiers cheered. Patton has been defeated. That was your Highness's 5th consecutive victory. Having endured 1,000 tempests across 100 fights, I will stand firm even before an even greater storm. System confirmation. A new melody has been added to the battle chant. Only now do I rise with sword in hand. The system began upgrading. The battle chant's grade became extraordinary. The chant adapted to its grade and transformed into a dual hymn. His mana heart returned to calm. I succeeded. Adrian was then so exhausted he couldn't stand. As his heavy body fell, a hand caught him. Are you all right? A soldier smiled sitting before Adrian. We offer our respects to your Highness's victory. Then they all cheered in unison. Respect the Crown Prince's sword, respect your fighting spirit. We pay homage to your victory. This strange, sugary reaction surprised Adrian. What is this? Moments ago they wanted to tear me apart. York finally explained. They're simple folk by nature. Swordplay and victory, nothing excites them more. Looking at your face, you must have thought you'd earned their hatred. Vale approached him, eyes full of pride. An honorable defeat is worth more than a filthy victory. When both sides fight with all they have, does winning or losing still matter? They took some pride in the praise. Still, Dunham would be a bit regretful. The red-haired youth crossed his arms and smirked. Yes, because he must present the sword he so prides to your Highness, followed by endless taunts. What a relief. He was overly arrogant about that blade. Adrian bowed his head low and laughed at himself. I thought everything I knew had been forgotten and cast aside with my mana heart. But it seems at least one thing hasn't changed. The feeling he thought he'd lost but can now enjoy again. The nobility in defeat and respect for the strong, the spirit of knights. After the cultural exchange, it was time for Adrian to haul himself back to the palace. But this time he seemed a bit reluctant. Then, see you next time. York placed a hand on his chest, bowed his head and replied, I wish you good health until then. Adrian politely added, you take care as well, Count. Just 3 seconds after turning, Adrian Leon Burke had something more to say. Right, Count Wallowden. Please keep secret what happened while I was here. He tilted his head in puzzlement. Wouldn't it benefit your Highness more if it were made public? Adrian rubbed his chin, a sly look appearing on his face. He thought of the dear sibling waiting at home. There's someone I want to tease a little. After leaving Wallowden, the riding party found a temporary stop. Tonight we'll camp here. Carl informed Adrian. I'll scout the area for a bit. He nodded approval. Go ahead. Arwen kept staring at Adrian from behind. He turned and thought to himself that Arwen would adapt soon enough. Then Adrian Leon Burke yawned and went into his private tent. I should rest as well. To his surprise, Adelia was already waiting there. Your Highness, you're back. He was at a loss over her strange behavior. The one he took in should have been a sword prodigy with an S-tier gift, yet she was tending to servant tasks. Adelia, clueless at his blank sigh, asked, Your Highness, is something the matter? Adrian lazily stretched out on the couch. No, forget it. You may step back. She replied helplessly, Yes, Your Highness. After Adelia Byron left, he wearily considered what came next. The lion design knights are different from what I thought. When I used the power of judgment, most ordinary knights didn't possess sword talent above B rank. In the past, even those who underwent a lifetime of brutal training could hardly reach the mid-level swordmaster tier. Ordinary people would have faded into obscurity and hopelessness. Yet such people reached a realm comparable to a swordsman, while only in their 20s or 30s. The innate talent of a superhuman had declined beyond comparison. But the fundamentals of ordinary people had risen noticeably. Piecing everything together, Adrian sprang up immediately. It's thanks to the mana chain. My great-uncle was someone who could have aspired to the transcendent in the past. That's why I was so displeased when he abandoned that potential. However, this era is one in which there isn't even an opportunity to build achievements far beyond the extraordinary grade. In the end, everything flows with the tide of time. I must admit that I don't fully understand the age. The next words left his mouth, so I'll start learning from the beginning. Someone who overheard immediately remarked, "That's a good mindset." Vale applauded heartily. Whether it aligned with Adrian's thoughts or not, it's not too late. If you strive from now, you can achieve your dream. He foolishly wondered inwardly, no, what dream? He brushed aside the prior reaction and went straight to the point. Haven't you already captured the hearts of the lion design knights? Other princes couldn't integrate with them so naturally. For some reason, Vale Balorhard's eyes glittered as if filtered. That is a very wise decision, Adrian. Of course, Adrian didn't understand a thing. What? What's wrong with Uncle? He was flustered by Vale's flowery words. Has my uncle gone mad? He asked, gripping his hand. Don't you remember the terms of the bet you made with him? Adrian mentally ran through several wagers. If it's the bet about defeating the third prince, that's still pending. Before he finished, Vale cut him off. No, our wager was to defeat a second-tier knight. He startled and pointed at himself. Then consider that I've won the bet. Vale strode closer. I will fulfill exactly what I promised back then. Adrian still didn't fully grasp the issue he was referring to. Unexpectedly, Vale patted his chest and announced his name. Vale Balorhard, as Count of the Kingdom and Commander of the Third Legion. I will officially support the kingdom's crown prince, Adrian Leon Burke. Adrian cursed inwardly. What the hell is he saying, officially support? Only then did his smart brain catch up. Don't tell me. Vale Balorhard, like a burst of sunlight, gave a decisive nod. Trust me, Adrian screamed incoherently. When did I ever say I wanted to be king? After that day, my uncle's declaration truly became a heavy bomb. Congratulations rang throughout the castle. Your Highness, congratulations. We sincerely congratulate you. This is truly the kingdom's joy. The summoned royal knights and newly dispatched soldiers were causing an uproar, along with maids and servants, newly sent from the palace bustling about. And I suddenly found myself at the center of all of it. Adrian angrily pointed out the window and shouted, "This is chaos. Send them all back immediately." Carl remained calm at his excessive tone. Even if you order them to leave, they won't listen. Adrian Leon Burke grumbled one syllable. Then at least send them out of my sight. This is driving me insane. Just as he wanted, a moment later the window was opened. Adrian's ears returned to their usual peace. Finally some quiet. This better. Not 3 seconds of comfort passed before the door was flung open mercilessly. "Big brother, are you there?" Looking at the youth before him, he impatiently asked, "Why are you still here at this hour?" The boy was none other than third Prince Gillian Leon Burke. You've acted your part well, secretly learning swordsmanship from Count Balorhard and even revealing such grand ambitions. He paid no mind to the accusation. Learn what from whom? Gillian, already sulking, added an awkward pretense. I really intended to save you face, so how could you do this? I plan to let you lose without too much shame. Adrian propped his chin and watched him squirm like a brat. Wonderful, I'm moved to tears. Gillian scowled and pointed at him. Big brother, you've made a grave mistake, because I will make you pay dearly for deceiving me. That name and that other name, I've told you I have no interest in that throne. I need to find the mastermind behind this. The mastermind is present, Adrian clarified thoroughly. So, uncle, I will cooperate for a time, so please withdraw at the appropriate moment, because I have no interest in things like the throne. He ground his teeth bitterly. Why did you start all this on your own without consulting me? Vale smirked as if understanding. Are you worried about House Balorhard? Balorhard is the shield that protects the kingdom from the monsters of the northern mountain range. He continued his tense reassurance. As long as the royal family and nobility do not forget the harshness of winter, nothing bad will happen to House Balorhard, right? He showed clear displeasure but continued. If that's true, then that's a relief. The next remark made Adrian rethink. It's only a matter of time. After all, it's bound to happen. Don't you truly understand that the fate of a firstborn who cannot inherit the throne won't change, just because you keep hiding? If you need time to accept reality, I'll give you as much as you like. However, remember this. The legitimacy of the firstborn does not disappear unless you die. Adrian muttered repeatedly even after Vale left. I told you, no matter how much time he gives me, I won't change my mind. What I truly need to reclaim is the power and strength that reach the transcendent realm. So there's no way I'd want something as mundane as a hereditary throne. I certainly thought that. In the royal hall, there seemed to be a banquet being held. Announcements echoed throughout the room. The legitimate blood of the kingdom, Leon Burke, the eldest son of House Leon Burke. With his arrival, the call continued. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Adrian Leon Burke, is entering. Among the glances as sharp as daggers were the proud eyes of Vale and Taylor, and, of course, the thought of not inheriting persisted until the banquet began. Adrian slowly descended the staircase. His face bore the solemnity of a prince. Those present began flattering him with every compliment. Astonishingly, his dignified bearing resembled the king in his youth. Inwardly, Adrian scorned the spectacle. Making such a fuss just because I lost a little weight. Is this really the kingdom's nobility? What a farce. For the people before him all shared the same trait, serpent-heartedness. Adrian's expression turned icy. He refused to move an inch among them. This was the accumulated wickedness of those who plunder and trample others' lives, and unexpectedly they all bore that filth. The only one worth noticing among them was, he walked past those still discussing him and heard, "His Highness has grown into such majesty." Adrian went straight to Taylor and greeted him enthusiastically. "Taylor, if you're here, you should bow to me." Taylor returned the warmth. "Your Highness, I apologize. I wish to thank you for the invitation." Adrian observed Taylor and thought inwardly that some people may lack talent yet remain uncorrupted. "Yes, that's enough. For serving as the vessel for the seeds I will sow from now on." The conversation was momentarily interrupted by a knight's command. "Attention!" Formally recognized by His Imperial Majesty of Bourgogne. The title, Marquis Montpellier of Bourgogne. Ambassador Coulin de Bourgogne-Montpellier is entering. Adrian's face froze momentarily upon hearing that name. What? The one who appeared was the ambassador of the Bourgogne Empire, Coulin de Bourgogne-Montpellier. A smile on his face, he slowly approached Adrian. "Long time no see, Prince." His eyes widened in surprise. Memories of a past life returned. Bourgogne, the age-old enemy we and our comrades fought for so long 400 years ago. A name that left countless scars on this country. How dare he stand here before me? A nobleman accidentally tripped and sent wine splashing everywhere. Adrian was soaked through. The nobleman hurriedly turned and apologized. "Your Highness, are you all right? I was rushing to greet you so." "I sincerely apologize, Your Highness." Adrian shot him a bullet-like glare. However, his eyes were actually fixed on Coulin. The room gradually fell into a deadly silence. Adrian turned to leave, announcing, "I need to change my clothes." The nobleman bowed and admitted fault. This old body didn't obey and has committed a great rudeness. On this side, Carl was waiting with a cloth in hand. "Your Highness, allow me to escort you." Adrian glanced at the man who spilled wine on him and wondered, who is he? Carl followed his gaze and quickly replied, "That is Marquis Bielefeld." Adrian took the cloth, wiped himself, and left with a sneering smile. Bielefeld, so not all of them are rotten. That eased my temper a bit. Night came very quickly. He was left sitting alone in the dark. The door opened once more, and none other than Vale entered. "I heard there was an incident." Worry showed on his face. Vale stepped closer and explained, "Marquis Bielefeld said you look like you're about to cause some serious trouble." It seems he wasn't entirely talking nonsense. Vale sat in the chair beside Adrian. "So what exactly do you intend to do?" Only now did Adrian speak to explain. "I'm not insane, I just can't understand it. The Bourgogne family brazenly flaunts power in the heart of the kingdom, and the nobles show him a sincere deference they don't even grant the royal family. The atmosphere is too tense to be called peaceful, and the relationship is too coercive to be called an alliance." With a tense face, he asked, "Why has the country come to this?" The topic sent Vale into thought. It's not a particularly unique history. In the past, the kingdom staunchly resisted countless invasions by the empire. Outstanding knights rose up to repel it. However, over time, the empire grew stronger and the gap widened. Facing an empire that became a great power, the kingdom ultimately had no choice but to kneel. He suddenly widened his eyes as if understanding something. "Don't tell me, was it because of that?" The story continued. Though a small country on the continent's edge, the kingdom once possessed things that allowed them to stand against the mighty empire. From the nation's founding, achievements accumulated without blemish. Some ordinary, some extraordinary, sometimes heroic tales, sometimes legends, and even myths, epic songs. Adrian saw blue energy in his hand and lamented, "We've lost all of that." After a while he spoke again, "Father, I've changed my mind." Vale looked puzzled at the sudden statement. "What do you mean?" Adrian placed a hand over his chest and declared, "I'll try becoming king." Vale couldn't hide the surprise on his face. However, Adrian himself had begun considering how to act to achieve that goal. He might regret this decision, but it was something he had to do. Time kept passing, even as he remained lost in thought. After all, half this country was built by his own hand. The second day of the banquet, Adrian, wearing an entirely new outfit, was walking down the corridor. The announcement of his arrival rang with grandeur. "His Royal Highness Crown Prince Adrian Leon Burke is entering." His uncle Vale, Count of the Northern Balorhard domain, is entering. Adrian's face was ice cold as he entered. Today no one dared approach to make small talk. Adrian looked at the nobles before him and thought, the ceremony is so sloppy it's worse than the way they'd treat a foreign aristocrat. His expression did not change even a little. Nevertheless, old memories were stirred. In the past, when I stood before the people, no one thought he'd become king, because he was just a country boy from some remote village. Even among those stripped of everything and cast out, he was not noble. His steps were slow but full of certainty. His story was written with that first step. Yet the youth stepped forward before all the people. Adrian connected that to the present, just as I am now. Blue energy surrounded him as his voice rose. Oh, you who have eyes but do not see. That energy quickly spread throughout the room. Adrian's expression was one of exhilaration. Before my flock I stand proud, I sing the monarch's song. The current power cannot match the rank of the war hymn, so part of it is omitted. Singing just one stanza of the war hymn equals 1/4. Under the pressure of this power on his body, Adrian couldn't help feeling uneasy. Compared to the true dragon world-destroying song, it's still bearable, since this war hymn is at hero rank, not mythic. His eyes suddenly widened. However, no war hymn fit the present situation better than this one. A figure emerged from the crowd. The nobles all wore expressions of astonishment. The music transformed into an outfit tailored for Adrian alone. That should be enough. Now you may raise your heads. Before he could finish the sentence, something from behind drew his attention. Adrian hurriedly turned. This aura. An elf race, the mysterious voice said. How surprising. Who would have thought someone still remembered the war hymn? Adrian's eyes widened in horror. No, it's not just an elf race. That woman is. Why is that crazy woman here? The most beautiful creatures the gods ever made. A benevolent people who would never slay even the smallest life without cause. The gardeners of the ancient forest, living 3 to 1,000 years. That is the image of the elf race in everyone's mind. But, in reality, they are brutal predators who use beauty as bait to destroy their enemies. Those called high elves, the superior elf race, are born with the bearing of heroes and are even more dangerous. Moreover, she is not merely at the level of an ordinary high elf, one who has lived nearly 1,000 years, an elder of the elf race, an elder high elf, a demon swordsman who dances on the battlefield, Sigrun, a member of the expeditionary force who slaughtered the rampaging dragon 400 years ago. And also, Sigrun then perversely posed her question. If your master dies, would you like to come with me? I will ensure you never know boredom for the rest of your life. She smiled, touched Gruhorn's true form then. A sword, and caressed it, teasing. So what if you are a sword? Precisely because you're a sword, I crave you all the more. The madman tortured me terribly. Just recalling it was enough to make present-day Adrian shiver with fear. Could she have recognized me? And she knew the monarch's song just as I had sung it. Sigrun stepped closer and said, haven't we met somewhere before? Adrian across from her shook his head violently. Seeing that, she murmured again, how strange. Why does this feel so familiar? He slowly approached Sigrun and said, this is the first time I've seen the elf race with my own eyes. Other noble attendees also gradually approached Sigrun. Really, it's true. She placed a hand on her chin, appearing contemplative. Then she declared coldly a line that made Adrian stiffen inwardly. Lies. He thought to himself that 400 years ago Sigrun had been a top-tier force among swordborns, so who knew what kind of monster she had become now? Only then did Sigrun voice her thoughts. Human reactions upon first seeing the elf race typically fall into 2 types. The vast majority are enchanted, but those of higher realms become wary. She reached forward and nearly touched Adrian. However, in my view, then she leaned in with a remark. Your Highness, you do not seem to have reached that higher realm yet. Adrian pushed her finger away as he replied. It's just that my aesthetic taste is a bit unusual. This action darkened Sigrun's expression in an instant. She donned a hood and turned to leave. I was pleased to meet you, even if only for a moment. Only then did Adrian allow himself to breathe a sigh of relief. He'd passed one trial for now. Remarks echoed as the girls appeared one by one. Too young. And this one seems unwilling to meet my gaze, it seems. Another person was called forward. Could it be they're here to compete with me? Then came a little girl. I told you, too young. There were even women with various expressions, utterly uninterested. The queen looked so exhausted, she could barely sit upright. Adrian standing beside her was the same. She turned to lecture him. This is the selection of a prince's bride. Do not expect them to be like the women you usually meet. A prince's bride should be gentle, intelligent, healthy, and backed by a solid family. Unexpectedly, an announcement rang from outside. Your Majesty, the delegation of the elf race requests an audience. The queen nodded in agreement. Very well. The person who appeared was none other than Sigrun. She bowed respectfully in salute. Sigrun of the parasitic clan pays homage to the beautiful Queen Margarita. The queen opposite returned the gesture with an equally gentle smile. It's been a long time since the elf race visited the kingdom. You surprise me. Sigrun across from her didn't beat around the bush and asked directly. It seems the queen is seeking a match for his highness, yes. The queen had no intent to hide it, as you surmise. Upon hearing that, Sigrun proceeded to state plainly, I am a high elf. In human terms, you might consider me nobility of an ancient house. Adrian, standing to the side, could only force a wry smile and thought inwardly, wait, what is she about to say? Sigrun continued to put on an innocent air. And coincidentally, my age isn't that different from his highness's. Only Adrian himself knew the truth. Lies nearly 1,000 years apart, and she says they're not. How could she utter such brazen fabrications without shame? They say the eternally beautiful elf race is the ideal partner for humans, and they even have attendants always at their side. If translated into human terms, they're like an order of knights. In fact, from the very first moment she saw his highness, she felt her fate bound to his. Adrian was pensive from this. The elf race never lies about fate and bonds. Were her words all true? Hearing this, the queen also gaped and considered. It was indeed audacious. One declaration was enough to make the nobles buzz with discussion. Remember, the elf race esteems fate. Does this mean a marriage alliance is imminent? My goodness. This time Adrian couldn't contain himself and acted at once. He seized Sigrun's wrist, then without another word dragged her away. We need to speak in private. The nobles watched and muttered in disgust. What an insolent creature. The room's door was quickly closed. Adrian turned to the woman beside him, Sigrun, and without beating around the bush asked directly, state your true purpose. Sigrun smiled. I only came for friendly relations between our houses and the kingdom. Adrian laid his cards on the table as well. I'll ask again, elder of the elf race Sigrun, the executor who has borne the family's killing duty for centuries, the sword of the parasitic clan. He asked aloud, is your purpose reconnaissance or execution? This time Sigrun did not hide it and smiled. Intriguing, how do you know of me? Adrian's face grew tense. He observed the killing intent radiating from Sigrun and silently assessed that, as he stood now, she was an immeasurable monster. That she could sense fate from him meant her rank was high enough to glimpse alternate pasts recorded in his soul. Sigrun questioned him neither quickly nor slowly, each word loaded with threat. You know I am an executor, and yet do you not know how foolish it is to remain silent before me? Adrian wore a mocking smile. I know full well that that is no less foolish than speaking recklessly before an executor. Adrian changed the subject. Enough joking, Sigrun, do not interfere with my fate. Inwardly, he calculated that she was only somewhat curious about him for now. At this rate, the fate of this small human would be torn apart by the hand of that mad elf. Better to provoke a greater interest from her, to become something not merely nibbled and discarded, but a delicacy to be aged and slowly savored. Sigrun slowly approached, her face eager as she studied Adrian. Who exactly was he? He kept his composure and replied, the me you see now is just a pitiful prince abandoned by his own father. Sigrun asked, puzzled, then who are you truly? And received an evasive answer. Who knows? The corner of Adrian's mouth curved into a smile. If you want to know, just wait and see. This arrogantly delivered line silenced Sigrun. Then she commented, no wonder I found it odd, why send me on such a trivial mission? There's clearly no reason at all. But now I understand, it's because of you. Adrian's face went pale, exhaustion clear on his features. Truly, that woman always makes the hairs on one's neck stand up. They returned to the chamber, where the nobles and the queen were waiting. The sight of the two of them holding hands stunned the crowd. Adrian stopped before the queen. He spoke seriously, Your Majesty, I have something to report. I will become betrothed to Sigrun. Adrian himself could not have expected those words to come from his own mouth. Never had he imagined calling that name so fondly. Now he could not go against Sigrun's whims. The queen asked in shock, betrothed to the elf. In Adrian's mind, he calculated that although it might buy some time, this is a grave matter that cannot be decided hastily, so I wish to take time to learn more. The queen tilted her head, weighing it carefully. Very well, that seems fine. Adrian thought inwardly that for the queen this was time to consider the benefits of such a marriage. For Sigrun, it was time for the dish called me to mature. And for myself, it would be time to cultivate strength, to escape that mad elf. A powerful hand slammed down hard enough to knock over a teacup. Damn it. A storm of curses echoed through the room. That bastard, he has nothing more than being born earlier, yet he dares to act high and mighty. Jillian's face flushed red with anger. Remembering Adrian's actions made him so furious his eyes popped. Recently, not only had his tutor suddenly announced support, but he had also plucked the bloom of the Iron Lion City. Now he even dared to touch the elf race. He had thought women merely pretty, but the elf race possessed a presence far beyond imagination. Jillian snorted and muttered smugly, "That's right, I have a sparring match scheduled with him soon. Killing him would cause too much trouble, better to chop him a few times so he can no longer be a man. I will trample you underfoot miserably." A knight stood ready, his voice rang out. "This sparring match is certified by me, commander of the Royal Knights, honored with the title Schirmhilde Stuttgart. I declare that no one may dispute the outcome. Your Highnesses, please draw your blades." Adrian lazily let out a long yawn to the side. "It's just fencing, why all the fuss?" Jillian proudly drew his sword. "I've prepared a lot for you. I've brought quite an audience. Are you satisfied?" He spoke provocatively, hoping Adrian wouldn't disappoint the spectators. Adrian replied evenly, "I've seen this before. You're talking too much." Jillian, burning with rage, bellowed an oath. "After the match, I hope you still have the strength to chat like this." Seeing him rush to attack, Adrian answered coldly that he had intended to toy with him a little. He moved swiftly into a finishing blow. "But now I'm a bit busy." Jillian collapsed to the ground, unable to react. The onlookers were all taken aback. Even the match supervisor widened his eyes in astonishment. Is that truly the crown prince I once knew? Adrian showed no change of expression from beginning to end. He sheathed his sword. At that moment, Schirmhilde spoke slowly. "As the public official supervising this match, I rule that the third prince cannot continue fighting. The victor is the crown prince." Adrian cast a sharp, bullet-like glance backward, his face tensing as he muttered, "Nobles in name only swarming to watch children fight like this." They, the nobles, were now whispering among themselves. Has Prince Jillian really lost? He was a promising second-rank heir of the kingdom. How could he lose to the crown prince, who only began training a few months ago? Jillian came to, with his head covered in bandages. He nearly sprang up with a curse. That useless rotten bastard. Then he stormed to the door and flung it open, ready to go. "I'll return and settle this with him." A call from behind interrupted his action. "Your Highness." The knight spoke calmly. The crown prince departed the capital with Count Balorhard as soon as the match ended. Jillian asked impatiently, "Departed? To where?" The knight replied awkwardly about that. "It is said he went north, to the Balorhard family's residence." Vale beside Adrian commented, "He can ride quite proficiently now." Adrian smiled and answered him, "Once you get the hang of these things, you learn fast, right?" His nephew's smug attitude made Vale frown. "I misspoke. You should learn some humility. Why the hurry? The banquet is over. Why not rest for a few days?" Adrian explained calmly, "Because there's no place for me in the capital. I don't intend to beg support from those who do not recognize the rightful owner of this land, who only know how to flatter the empire's hunting dogs. Soldiers and knights suit me better than the nobles, don't they?" Vale said, "They may not be as shrewd as nobles, but they are far steadier. Do you think winning their favor is easy?" Hearing this, a smile returned to Adrian's lips. "Sharing life and death will lead to affection. What is there to worry about, uncle?" Vale fell into thought. "I still can't shake the feeling you're rushing." Adrian thought to himself, "As for that, if I hesitate any longer, I'll have to marry that madwoman. In the past, everyone she set her sights on met doom. Before that happens, I must strengthen myself. That is impossible in the peaceful capital, so I must leave. The place to accelerate my growth and to hone my sword lies elsewhere, where a person's mettle is tested the most, where the most war songs are born. The place I need to go is the battlefield." Vale announced once they arrived elsewhere. "That mountain is the Swordblade Range, the border our family has spent their lives guarding." Adrian shivered as the wind hit him, freezing. Seeing this, Vale kindly suggested, "If you can't bear it, sit inside the carriage." Adrian shook his head. "No need. Either way, I must get used to this cold." A man's voice called from the carriage. "Am I causing trouble? That old man has commandeered everyone's carriage." Adrian looked at him curiously. "Why are you coming along? There's nothing to see." Niccolo said enthusiastically, "When else will I have a chance to study this rugged northern region? Besides, the book I'm about to write will surely benefit your Highness." Adrian was irritated by the man's attitude. An annoying old fool. His gaze shifted to one side. It fell upon Arwen. Adrian slowly approached and asked worriedly, "Arwen, are you all right? Sitting in front must be very cold, right?" She hurriedly turned and protested vehemently, "I'm fine." Seeing her trembling body, Adrian replied, "If you're tired, you can swap shifts anytime." Arwen refused stubbornly. How could a knight seek comfort for themselves? That attitude pleased him. Having someone so full of vigor is a good thing. Arwen's face flushed faintly as she moved in silence. Only then did Adrian glance back. On the other hand, it seemed the people forced to follow by royal order were very dissatisfied. If Carl were here, he'd have set them straight already. This was because earlier the king had ordered that the Royal Knight Corps were not your personal knights. Don't you also have many knights under you? Although I doubt you truly regard them as knights. Adrian was angered by this remark, that petty old man. For that reason, Carl could not accompany them north. No matter what reckless things I've done, he's still my kin. The king's attitude seemed excessive. There must be something I'm not aware of. When Vale saw the snow thickening, he urged, "We must quicken our pace. If we don't hurry, we'll be trapped by the blizzard, unable to move forward or back." The snowflakes soon turned into a blizzard. The march grew so fierce they couldn't hear the voice next to them. Vale worriedly turned to look back. He quickly ordered, "Abandon the carriages, keep only the horses, and proceed on foot." Adrian looked around and thought to himself, was that a shout using mana? Then he signaled to the people inside the carriage, "Adelia." Adelia quickly grabbed his hand. "Your Highness, thank you." Adrian replied softly, "All right." Arwen rushed over worriedly. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" Adrian replied calmly, "I'm fine." Others were in a panic. "Watch out there, bumping into each other. Wait a moment, the wind is too strong." Adrian acted quickly and reminded, "Arwen, take care of Adelia." Arwen acknowledged with one word, "Yes, Your Highness." He stepped forward and ordered, "You idiots, put down your shields. Holding such large shields will get you blown away by the wind. Besides your swords, drop all that cumbersome gear. We can come back for it later. You big one over there, lead the line, form a column." The other knights watching Adrian's actions couldn't help but marvel. "It seems we need not intervene. We plan to perform a courtesy and then assist, but Prince has battlefield experience." Each step in the blizzard felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Everyone still wanted to press forward. Suddenly someone fell. A shout quickly reached Adrian. "Your Highness, a soldier has fallen behind." He moved almost immediately, "Make way," and grabbed the collar of the fainted man. Adrian hoisted him onto his shoulders, then barked roughly, "What are you doing? Why aren't you moving?" They obediently followed, "Yes, Your Highness." The group continued toward the castle ahead. Adrian breathed heavily as that hellish march was about to end. Everyone's steps were exhausted. Adrian dropped to the ground, looked ahead and muttered, "Damn blizzard. If you're going to stop, stop already." The sky cleared as if nothing had happened. Vale stepped forward slowly. Only then did he halt, then slowly turned his head. A banner was raised. Vale declared calmly, "As the lawful lord of Balorhard and commander of the kingdom's 3rd Legion, I welcome the visit of the Crown Prince." Adrian wore an excited expression upon hearing those words. Vale smiled and announced, "Sincerely welcome to Winterhold. This is Winterhold, a fortress at the kingdom's northernmost point, standing to stop the monsters that dwell on the Swordblade Range. A bulwark against beasts." The gruff knight swore loudly. "O gods, if that place opens, the monsters will flood in, cold, harsh, dangerous, with a low survival rate. It's a place I absolutely don't want to go back to. The worst posting for ordinary soldiers." Even the noblewomen chatted noisily. "Winterhold may be our greatest weapon and also Balorhard's heaviest chain." From the start, that frigid, treacherous land was nothing to behold. The realm's nobles could gauge Winterhold's political significance. But then the great gate opened again, and a figure with black hair emerged. To those born and raised in Balorhard, it was a duty and a pride they would carry for life. The young man placed his hand on his chest and proclaimed loudly, "Vincent Balorhard. Effective today, I resign the acting command and return to serve as captain of the Ranger Company." Fortunate that my father has returned safely, Vale put a hand on his son's shoulder and continued, "You've worked hard, Vincent." A teasing voice called from behind, "What is this, foster father? You have a son too." Vale glanced back and replied, "Of course. How old do you think I am that I'd have no offspring?" Adrian pointed at Vincent and added, "Look closely, there is some resemblance, especially that stubborn corner of the mouth." Vale began the introduction. "Vincent, this is Crown Prince Adrian." Vincent bowed. "Captain of the Balorhard Ranger Company, Vincent of House Balorhard, pays respects to Crown Prince Adrian." This deferential gesture pleased him greatly. "Nice to meet you." The truth was Vincent felt continual resentment. Winterhold was a fortress for true warriors willing to die for noble beliefs. It was not a place for a rogue, expelled from the capital, parading about with a group of women. A knight there offered to Adrian, "Your Highness, I will show you around the keep." He accepted the offer very well. Vincent's face twitched with anger. Why did his father bring someone like that? "Father, what is really going on?" Vale answered softly, "Just as you heard. I have decided to become Adrian's patron, and Adrian will stay at Balorhard for a time." The more he heard, the more dissatisfied he became. Isn't that the vagrant his majesty cast off? Didn't father once call him a useless wretch with a rotten nature? Vincent's remark made Vale look to the side. He simply offered a gentle remark, "People can change," along with a reminder, I have only one thing to tell you, Vincent. Watch him without letting prejudice into your heart. Quickly, they moved into a room. How is the cleanup of the monster villages progressing? Vincent spoke on behalf of the men. We've been steadily clearing them, but many places remain uncleansed. Now that father has arrived, I intend to take official action. Vale continued, asking about the remaining forces. He answered promptly, the ranger company will. Placing a finger on a piece on the map, another voice said, the problem is the orcs. A small band of fewer than 20 orcs has occupied the mountain pass area. Vale replied quickly. At that scale, arrows from the rangers alone will struggle to resolve it. Vincent nodded in confirmation. Yes, so I'm currently sorting out the knights garrisoned in the town. Unexpectedly, Adrian interjected with a declaration. This matter, let me handle it. His single statement was enough to make the room erupt in objections. Your Highness, the orcs of the Swordblade Range are very different from ordinary orcs. If anything goes wrong, even the ranger campaign could be affected. Then Adrian looked back and asked Vale for his opinion. Foster father. He understood and turned to Vincent. Vincent, what has been confirmed about the orcs' numbers and combat strength? He reported in extreme detail. As confirmed so far at most 20. The presence of orc warriors or orc mages has not been verified, but neither can it be ruled out. Then Vale turned and asked Adrian directly, are you confident? This question surprised Vincent so much he slammed the table and stood. Father, that mountain pass is one of the main routes the rangers use regularly. If it becomes a battlefield with the orcs, subsequent operations will become exponentially harder. Moreover, if any danger befalls your highness, Balorhard's stance will also. Adrian listened nearby, smiling inwardly. Clever parenting. However, Vale's decision was clear. Enough worrying, Adrian, what do you need? Adrian began outlining his operational plan. First, prepare about 3 guides. Adjust our troops' equipment a bit. If there are crossbows, lend us some. Vale nodded in agreement. That request is not difficult at all. I will prepare as such. Only Vincent from start to finish completely disbelieved what was happening before him. The soldiers quickly received the order to deploy. One of them asked in confusion, what are you saying? Adrian calmly explained, we have been assigned to exterminate the orcs. The enemy count is 20 orc warriors or mages, possibly present, possibly not. The knight scratched his head and replied bewilderedly. Your Highness, the 3rd Legion is already here. Why are we going? Our duty is to guard your highness. This answer gave him more reason to counter. That's even better. After all, to protect me you must accompany us. Today the 3rd Legion will make contact. So go get your gear and then report back to me. At this point they could only obey. Yes, your highness. Adrian glanced back and judged silently. In any case, these are troops granted to me, so I must train them to be useful. In the blizzard they seemed untrustworthy, but after all they were elites hand-picked by the royal house, fairly capable. This person's data displayed. Hands Detch, swordsmanship, tactics, fortress defense, infantry formation, though mixed in was one who looked somewhat suspicious. A new day quickly arrived. The moment for the punitive expedition had come. Adrian looked at Vincent before him and exclaimed in disbelief, the guide is that person. His attitude made the other party somewhat annoyed. Your Highness may not know, but if this operation fails, it will cause greater obstacles than you think. Adrian replied coolly, it won't fail. The remark irritated him. You think too simply. The two of them radiated clear hostility toward each other. An information panel appeared before Adrian. He read the line and assessed silently. Can't view the status window, at least a 3-chain knight. In the rear group, only one was a true ranger. The rest were knights disguised as ordinary rangers. They probably planned to bypass me and handle things themselves if anything happened. Well, at this level I'll turn a blind eye. Adrian turned and signaled. Very well then. Adelia, I won't be taking you, so don't worry. His words made her a bit sad. Sorry, Your Highness, she replied, but the truth is Adrian is worried about himself. If his traits develop wrong, the one in trouble would be me. They began to march. Vincent kept reminding them, we must pace ourselves and conserve energy as much as possible. If stamina drops, you'll get frost-numbed limbs and fighting will be much harder, especially in a place piled with snow and ice like the Swordblade Range, so pay extra attention to your steps. Adrian's face was already black as coal. This one is even more talkative than my father. A rabbit's shape appeared from the bushes. Adrian watched those around him become alert and thought under his breath. A rabbit. Under observation through a spyglass, they quickly located the monster's position. The angry orcs were having a meal. Vincent's scout grew serious. He turned back and signaled. There's a band of orcs ahead. What will you do, sir? Adrian raised a hand in response. The knights quickly took position, and loaded their weapons. An orc turned its head at the sound. Adrian advanced toward the monsters. A wicked smile spread across his face. "Hello, long time no see." The command was given swiftly. Fire. Arrows flew straight into the orcs. Adrian assumed a fighting stance as heavy footsteps thundered. Adrian's gaze sharpened as he slowly drew his weapon. Adrian lunged at the orc before him, growls full of killing intent, and Adrian broke into a delighted grin as he prepared to dive into the fight. The first slash he unleashed was powerful, the metallic, bloody tang rising. Adrian continued pressing forward. His face was extreme excitement, the thing he had always longed for and craved. Good, this is truly the atmosphere of the battlefield. At that moment, Arwen hurried over with a warning. "Your Highness, it's very dangerous," Adrian loudly forbade her. "Do not come here." The remark stunned Arwen into a momentary freeze. Adrian was entirely focused on the battle. There was a smile on his face, for if he got drawn in, that was a time more than 400 years ago, and even longer. The era when orcs were not monsters, but one of the rightful masters of this continent. This is not about myths or heroes, just a man who hadn't even left his name in history. A lament of a pitiable man who hated the orcs. The mournful requiem of a father who fought until utterly exhausted, piling greenish corpses into a mountain. The fleeting song of an extraordinary vengeance. Beneath it, a pool of bright red blood formed as I sang the song of revenge. A purse was suddenly tossed down roughly. Joseph hurriedly warned, "I heard Winterhold is a place where people die at the slightest slip." Yet he calmly reassured, "Don't worry too much. There won't be any fighting." The Count began to sneer. "What can that worthless prince do there? You don't even need to see to know he'll tuck himself into the city to steal credit from his uncle." His tone grew pleased. "The important thing isn't that worthless brat, but Balorhard. Keep an eye on Winterhold. Report anything suspicious to me." Joseph tightened the purse in his hand. The other party questioned again, "Can you do it?" And before long he answered, "I will do my utmost, my Lord Count." Gradually returning to the present, Joseph was utterly terrified. He clearly heard that. A lie. Before him now was a frenzied orc. This was completely different from what he'd been told. Arwen shouted loudly, "Formation 1, hold formation and advance." No sooner had she finished than the orc began attacking them. In the crisis, Joseph froze with fear. Damn it, what do I do now? The commands continued to ring out, forcing him to brandish his spear. Rank 2, attack. Only after a while following the thrust did Joseph slowly open his eyes. The orc nonetheless smashed into his vision, having no effect at all. Joseph, terrified, hastily dropped his weapon. It's over. At that moment, the man behind him suddenly darted forward. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, Arwen acted swiftly. As she swept past the orc, she cut off one of its arms. It collapsed immediately beneath her blade. The falling arm even frightened him into stepping back. As for Arwen, she warned sternly, "This is a battlefield. Don't let go of your weapon carelessly." Joseph on that side hurriedly nodded, yes, and then a squad of soldiers began to surround Arwen. She also pointed her sword at the orc and ordered all troops prepare to fight. After signaling, Arwen hesitated slightly. "There are quite a few of them. With our current numbers, it seems hard to deal with them all." Suddenly, Arwen's eyes went wide at the sharp tang of blood. The orc in front of her was suddenly pierced through. Their screams rang out, turning Joseph's face ashen. Even the other soldiers were shocked stiff. As for Arwen, she was completely astonished to see a stream of red blood. Meanwhile, Adrian was calmly pulling his sword from the target. The orc's heavy body fell amid the tense atmosphere. At that moment, the fire of battle within Adrian surged even higher. Sensing something odd, Arwen probed, "Your Highness." But he did not answer, only slowly lifted his head. Then Adrian dashed off despite the objections, "Your Highness." In return, his steps grew hurried. Deep inside, Adrian recalled old battles, still not enough. Back then, his master used him to fell the orcs, no matter how many were slain. He did not stop there, he felled another, and killing more still was not enough. Yet that man's face remained void of feeling. Relentlessly searching for the enemy's blood, Adrian gradually remembered the man's momentum. As he roamed the barren lands ruled by the orcs, the furious orcs swung down, but the man leaped high. Seizing the opportunity, he set it ablaze directly. After felling it, he strode on unhurriedly. By then, the snow beneath his feet had been stained. The mana in his heart had long since run dry. His body was twisted and aflame with red light, yet he did not stop. Bit by bit, he raised his head, drinking the blood and chewing the flesh of the orcs. And in an instant, his hair had turned white. With each step, the man grew gradually frail. The magical sword in his hand supported him and was burning away the last of his life for that man's final vow. Those slaughtered left not a single fragment behind. He witnessed it all, His face darkened with terror. Along with that, the painting was stained. It was a soul-calming rite for his wife and daughter. Back in the battle, he immediately glared. And finally, his attention fixed on a red banner, as he faced his lifelong nemesis. His body had become battered and wounded. The man suddenly forced a weak smile. Then in the next second, he lunged like a feral beast. Facing the Orc King, he closed in on it directly. For the first time, he tried to strike its head. However, the orc easily grabbed him. Then it used its weight to batter and throw him down. His whole body slammed hard into the snow. That killing blow left him dazed. There was no chance left. After a while, the Orc King slowly raised its fist, leaving the warrior motionless. But the man did not give up until the very end. He struggled to draw each breath, weak and labored. At the same time, his vision gradually blurred, a story never told to anyone. In the end, he spoke no word. It's a tale no one knows. And in his hand, Gruhorn lay silently. Perhaps I am the only one who remembers all of it. The sudden break in memory made Adrian startle as well. Around him now, there were only the large corpses of orcs. Suddenly, Adrian heard a familiar commotion nearby. Looking over, he realized the battle was still going on. Knights, stop the orcs, the rest, restrain them. Adrian's palm quickly clenched. A flash of light also sparked in his eyes. I've remembered. With the renewed feeling, the frenzied flame rose. The Song of Revenge is an unfinished song. Then Adrian told himself, I must finish this song. With that resolve, he proceeded to slay the orcs one by one. Having taken out 3 in succession, Adrian lunged like an arrow. He drove his blade straight into its belly. Blood welled out, yet Adrian remained as emotionless as before, adding a new verse to his Song of Revenge. The verse echoed in his head. Piled corpses yellowed into a high mountain, below gradually pooling into a red puddle. Singing this, Adrian suddenly muttered, and I stand before that place. Adrian stood before that orc with the Song of Revenge resounding, and I stand before that place, remembering the soul of the one. When it ended, the system notified him that the Song of Revenge had transformed into a lullaby to calm souls. His spirit returning, Adrian tried to glance around. He quickly saw Vale and Vincent behind him, and then their banner was seized, breaking the orcs' flag. Vincent did not hesitate to declare the orcs completely annihilated. He also thought to himself, I proclaim victory. No sooner had he spoken than Vincent shouted, this is our victory. Meanwhile, Adrian grew curious about that man's name. As he looked at him, he recalled, it must be Vincent Balorhard. The heir of the house viewed the fight against monsters as a lifelong mission, a man who sacrificed his life in the past, aiming to wipe out all orcs. Adrian began to wonder, could he share the same name as that pitiable avenger? Then the man had whispered, even in the next life. His tone grew more resolute. I will do it again. And that made him exclaim how strange this coincidence is.